Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Barbarian Banter. I'm your host, Jonas Kilker.
And I'm your co-host, Dane Miller-Haas.
Our guest today is a bodybuilder and fitness coach who is quickly becoming a rising star in the realm of thought-provoking philosophical content creation, where he is able to blend his passions and share his truth. Greylen, welcome to the show.
Hey, happy to be here, you guys. I've actually followed you two for quite a while on my personal account, just here and there. So it's pretty crazy that for me.
It is always super cool in these settings to finally get to chat face to face. This is the first time we're ever speaking on the phone or anything. So yeah, it's always and it's even weirder once we'll meet in person, because it's that level of you think you know everything about a person, but then once you actually see their face, it's well, this is a fucking human being. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know, right? Becomes three-dimensional, so to speak.
Exactly. So first thing I wanted to ask you, I'm super fascinated by your content, but immediately, what came first for you, metal or bodybuilding?
I would suppose I would have to say bodybuilding.
Okay.
Strangely enough, but they kind of grew together in a way. When I was a youngin, I was brought up on country music. But it was in the era of country music where it wasn't, super good. This sort of, what do they call it? Bro country or whatever. But,
Stadium country, maybe?
Yes. But, gradually that got me in, to Alice in Chains, and I started getting to my dad's music a lot more. And, my dad, as an influential figure in my life, has always encouraged me to be very physical. From a young age, always doing stupid stuff like push-ups, even at the primary school, when I would go up the stairs, every single day he would walk me to primary school and he'd race me up the stairs. Nice. So that kind of spawned a passion for physical exertion early on, as my music taste kind of grew and matured.
That's cool. It's super important to have that. I also have that same, when I think of my dad, the first earliest memories I have of him are just on his off days, he would just throughout the day rip 100 push-ups whenever he had a second. And so you would just be in the house and you'd turn a corner and you would just hear his chain hitting the ground. And I just remember thinking, I'm oh, my dad is somewhere, And that's so cool, because it's obviously he's not pressuring that on me, but I'm growing up with the notion that men, they just do push-ups whenever they get a second. And that's it's an important aspect of being a man.
It's that modeling. Your dad's one of your first heroes, and if you see your dad doing cool stuff, getting big and being physical, you kind of want to. It sinks into your consciousness. So it's important that a dad's lives up to the hero that his son thinks he is. So that's awesome to hear that legacy kind of got itself into you.
Yeah, he's certainly a character and has influenced me in more ways than that. He's a writer and a poet in his own right.
Nice.
And he's always exposed me to philosophy in a very silly sort of way, in the way that a kid can digest and whatnot. And it's oftentimes by, he calls them his moonisms, but he's malappropriating sayings and stuff that he's picked up here and there. And
nice.
Hey Gray. One-legged duck swims in a circle, which I'm pretty sure is actually a Mongolian proverb. It's not just that nature.
Yeah, just no context. Just carry this with you, though. Don't forget about that.
Yeah, don't go nowhere unless you're with somebody or by yourself. Yeah, it's just stupid stuff like that. So
yeah.
These weird sayings that we develop, and this backward speech that we use, which I will try not to use, but I might find myself using. Saying the opposite of what you mean in a form of sarcasm. I ain't even about to go tear that up, that sort of. I feel like it's very common over here in the South, but it leads you to some very interesting, philosophical areas, because you start thinking about what you're actually saying, by having double opposites in your speech,
Yeah.
So, there's almost, in the same way that there's this layer of irony in the internet when you communicate. In the South, there is a layer of sarcasm always,
Interesting. That's not something that I obviously grew up around. I'm from Southern California, and the kind of I think that everybody sort of romanticizes the South for that reason, because there's just, it seems to be of all of the places in the United States, the most quote unquote like cultured or distinctly cultured, where it's like the South has their own accent, their own culture. It's almost like a separate part of the U.S. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it certainly can feel like a little island sometimes.
yeah.
Like I have not traveled outside of the southeast like at all,
Really
hardly. No, not
Re-
at all. And
interesting.
so I'll go across state lines and be like, this is a whole new world. Oh my god.
Well, you
Yeah.
know what's crazy is like being US citizens ourselves, like we have that kind of strange privilege of getting to travel like over 1,000 miles and you are just one state away. Whereas like in the rest of the world, like especially in Europe or something, you do that, you're in an entirely different country, a different world almost, you know?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think people forget how diverse the United States is in that sense of like you have geographical regions of the country that have totally different weather, totally different culture, like subcultures. People are just different. It's a whole different world.
Some people can't
But
understand the other people. Yeah.
yeah. It's just crazy. It's when you go on like a cross country trip or something, and it almost does sometimes feel like you're in a different country, or it's like these are my countrymen. You feel like a total foreigner, and the U.S. is just so vast geographically and population wise. It's hard. I think it's hard for a lot of other people to comprehend, especially Europe. You can drive to totally new country very, very quickly, relatively speaking. So it's
Yeah.
the United States is vast and has a lot underneath the surface of American patriotism.
True.
Absolutely.
Circling back to your upbringing really quick, is your dad also jacked? You were showing us a photo of you at, was that your first bodybuilding competition? The one at 19 years old? You're like natural. I'll throw the photo up if you wouldn't mind me, but you're
Yeah, you
19
could.
years old and you already look like you're like a genetically modified, enhanced human being. What? So
Yeah.
like you had like great bodybuilding genetics from the jump.
I, I feel like everyone wants to undersell their genetics, because it could be like, I just had to work really, really hard.
Exactly, exactly. And it doesn't undercut that because obviously, if anybody knows anything about bodybuilding, like it's incredibly intense. And no matter what your genetic starting point is, like you have to work very hard to be able to get to the point where you're up on stage and you don't look like a fool. But yeah, like how long was that process? When did you really start taking the training seriously, and when did you realize like you have what it takes to compete in bodybuilding?
So it started out like I had always been lifting and stuff, mainly for football, because I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy. I watched my brother come up. My brother is kind of an absolute animal in his glory days. 6'4". I mean, he was like 200. I think he was at his heaviest. He was 235. He was a right tackle, and his team that came through my little podunk school went to the second round of the playoffs, which was like the highest they ever freaking went.
Yeah.
And I saw myself. I was playing what was it, linebacker and
Mm-hmm.
running back, fullback specifically. At 100, I was like 135 pounds, and I got my way up to 155 just barely by my 10th grade year.
Wow.
So I was always in that realm of I'm in this crew of people, and I want
Mm-hmm.
to outwork them. Um,
Right.
Me and my dad both kind of have this sort of small man complex, which is, we've struggled when it comes to physical disciplines and stuff like that. Like I'm never bigger than the next guy I'm going up against, but I can't
Mm.
control like how hard I'm hitting and if I'm outworking somebody. And the idea of like, especially in practice, I'm not going to let coach or let other people on the team see weakness in a sense. So going ham on every single drill. Like I would be waking up in the morning, going to speed and agility training before school, and then going through the school day. I would have a weight training class, and then I'd have football practice afterwards, and then while my dad was in a coach's meeting, I would be lifting weights. So I was a coach's kid, but my dad coached offensive line, and I played running back and what is it? And the reason that I pivoted to bodybuilding was that the football program fell apart a little bit.
Oh, really?
Uh, so like we just got put in a difficult region. And the guy in my position who was above me who was linebacker, died in a game.
Oh my gosh. Oh
No
my
And
way.
gosh, man.
yeah, Dylan Thomas, absolute. I mean, wonderful dude, wonderful dude. I did not know him that well, because I was an underclassman, and he was, I'm not cool enough to talk to the upperclassmen, and I was a very much a closed off and type of person in high school. But I saw him above me, and I saw the direction that the whole program was heading,
Hmm.
and me and my dad were kind of just like, I just don't see it as productive. He said, if you stay in, if you're wanting to stay in, you're enjoying having a good time, stay in, I'll support you. But I think I took a pause, and it was a major loss of identity for me, and I think that's where I fell in love with bodybuilding, because I found that I always enjoyed the practice and the
Hmm.
training much more than game day, way more than game day.
Yeah. Not to the same degree, but I played soccer in high school, and I kind of came to the same realization. I came to it in my junior year, where I was like, I really just love like training with the guys, and I love the banter, and I love to practice. I love to just play. But when it actually comes to the games and it gets to it's like, you're gonna win or lose, and now it's gonna be like, how you're gonna carry yourself for the next week. Like that wasn't exactly what I was in it for. I just loved the camaraderie. And I felt like I
The,
could find that in other places,
the
It's like
original barbarian banter, bantering with the team.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
what
Yeah.
yeah.
Having
Yeah.
your gang of guys. It's
Yeah, yeah, can definitely attest to that as well. If I ever get back into martial arts, which I plan to, probably just to train and not compete. I spent enough time competing, enough of that stress, but yeah, there's something special about the training and pushing yourself consistently with in a group of boys for sure.
did you find it kind of like difficult to adapt to going from a team sport like football where you've got like 70 plus guys on your roster to a sport like bodybuilding where you're kind of just doing it on your own?
I feel like I would have, but I was already kind of doing that. Like
Mm,
I had friends on the team, and we were close. We were thick as thieves, really. But I always kind of saw myself as not quite fitting in for some reason or another. I really struggled to socialize, frankly. Besides, like
sensitive
friend,
young man, dude.
yeah,
You're aristocrat of the soul. It just comes to you.
yeah. So naturally, a person who's incredibly neurotic and motivated by negative emotion can close themselves off pretty easily and dedicate themselves to a trite and to a trite task, uh,
Yeah.
and just put your head down. But I was already kind of doing that anyways with like training by myself, like waiting on a coach's meeting, or early in the mornings there'd be just a few people, the speed and agility stuff. So the transition wasn't hard. It was really more so I had to get comfortable with the loss of identity. Like, hey, like I'm gonna have all these dudes that I was really close with. They're gonna be playing football, and now I am no longer part of that group. And I have like my group of say like five friends, that were chilling at the lunch table, mixing up gross concoctions to feed to the
Okay.
weakest friend. In the promise of an ice cream that we will not get him.
Yeah. Real.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, interesting. So, what about the sort of like the fusion because your bio on Instagram, you talk about how you infuse like your sort of passion for metal music into your training style. What does that look like, and how did you kind of like formulate that idea?
Man, I really think it just comes down to people who really, really jam with metal are predisposed to be neurotic and like hyper self-critical and hating the world, because that's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
can
what metal
attest.
talks about.
That's where I come from. I come from more of the world of punk rock, and I got into metal just because I was like, this is like has the aggression of punk rock, but the music is inherently better. And
Yeah.
it was kind of one of those things where I had to like realize I was like, am I just playing in punk bands because I'm not a good enough of a drummer to play in metal bands? And then I was like, I need to let go of that and just start trying to get better at playing the drums so I can be in metal bands. You know what I
You
mean?
were in a band. That's so neat, dude. I
I
have
was in a
zero
few
musical
bands.
prowess.
Okay, I was actually going to ask if you played music yourself. But like you said, it's kind of like it's not even necessarily about the music, it's more so about the identity. And I think that music is kind of one of those things that immediately you're able able to pick apart aspects of your identity that the music reveals to you that you wouldn't have known otherwise. Like I just made a post on my story recently. I was listening to like some deathcore, and I was just like, man, this is like the most unanxious I've felt in weeks. Like there's just been a lot going on in my life, but when I throw on some music that just makes me feel like I want to run through a wall, like everything feels okay. Everything feels cozy and like good in life. And obviously
Voice
that's
of
not
the
the
Soul
case.
by Death. Yeah.
True, and I know that for most, it's probably gonna wind them up in the other direction and be like, this is overstimulating, this is anxiety provoking, that kind of thing. And so I like that because especially when it comes to something like personal training or like getting into fitness or something, there's just an ocean of people that you could throw your money towards, but it's kind of like trying to find the person who's going to vibe with you the most. And I think that having that in of music is almost like one of the easiest ways to go about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's a good strategy.
Well, I appreciate that. I find that I can yap about music quite a lot. I don't pretend I'm really educated about it, but it's really just like analyzing literature to me at the end of the day. It's literature that jams,
There you go.
poetry that
Yeah.
jams. But yeah, like metalheads, they are like constantly down on themselves, but also angry at other people.
Huh.
And so, as soon as I'm about to complete a master's in exercise science,
Nice, bro.
and
Congrats.
well, appreciate that, and it's one of those things. It's like this is extremely useful as a tool, but no one cares about it. You know what I mean? Absolutely no one cares about it to the point that I could sit here and I could break down to an individual, hey, I'm struggling to grow my lats or whatever. Okay, I can give you some biomechanically sound training advice. I could even give it to you with the nuance of like the historical bodybuilding nuance incorporated into that, and even some methodologies that are, you know, not like super scientifical analytical type stuff, right? And give you an avenue to make progress. But that doesn't matter to people because really what they're more concerned with is like the actual mindset shift to training. Like how do you get a person that's like your stereotypical metalhead and you get them into lifting? If they're not already into lifting, it's because they are incredibly neurotic and self-critical most of the time. And shifting that mindset is a far more useful problem to solve than just throwing jargon and gobbledygook at people all day. You know.
Couple things. One, I want to ask you eventually, but I don't want to derail you here. Given your extensive knowledge in exercise science and the fact that you're a content creator and a coach and a competitor, a bodybuilding competitor, I do want to pick your brain at some point about what you might think of the whole, science-based lifting community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can get into that, but I also kind of was curious if, because I'm not a huge metal guy. I don't dislike metal. I just don't know a lot about it.
No, but your music taste is really good, Dan.
Well, I will take it from someone more musically inclined than I am. But
I will say I have the worst music taste on this podcast right now.
Hey, well, it's obviously worked out for you, and I see a lot of when I see guys lifting to like that, what I at least think is metal. I see there's a lot of overlap, it seems, with Warhammer fans and like fantasy fans, like that kind of big like roided up sci-fi and stuff. Is there any overlap for you in that sense, or am I kind of shooting it in the dark?
No, I'm LARPing because by virtue of my brother. So my brother he's big into Warhammer. He's big into like all that sort of stuff. He is, between the two of us, he's the major history buff. I mean, absolute whiz when it comes to history. I know just enough to be dangerous. The way my mind works is much more. It's more like webs. I think it was called, somebody referred to something I said as like web thinking. But what was the original question? Oh yeah, Warhammer and stuff like that. Like yeah, I enjoy it aesthetically. I was originally going to go to school for art, so anything that piques my interest from a storytelling or artistic standpoint appeals to me greatly. And Warhammer has a lot of cool lore. It has a bunch of epic ass art associated with it, and so
that's the main reason I like it, is the freaking artwork and just whole aesthetic. I never played the table. I've played other tabletop games. I haven't played Warhammer though. But
I didn't even realize it
just
was in
that
that
big
game.
freaking roided up. It's some of them look like death metal covers or power. I don't know. I'm gonna
Yes.
mess up the genres, but some of the artwork has that whole like aesthetic going on,
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just
and
like
that makes me want to get. I see those pictures, and I'm like, okay, I want to get on the freaking bench and move some freaking weight.
Yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
about like Frank Frazetta. Like when I see Frank
yeah, my goat,
Frazetta's
my goat.
artwork,
Dude,
I'm just
one of
like,
the
I'm just
greatest
like,
artists
I feel like
of
I
all
can
time.
hear power metal playing in the background when I see those
Do you know what
paintings.
is the absolute best? This is the best thing ever. There's never been an edit that will surpass this for me. You guys have probably seen it, but what it is, it's like this guy, like it's a for a commercial, like some sort of cream or perfume or something like that. He's like climbing a mountain, and he gets to the top, and he like rubs his
Yes,
face and holds
yes,
the
and
sword.
and the lightning
they-
comes down.
Yeah.
And they're playing the intro to Cochise by Audio Slave, which is not technically metal. It's technically in the grunge genre. But the
Grunge,
intro
yeah.
to Cochise by Audio Slave, that sends chills down my spine every single time I hear it. And even thinking about it right now, I'm thinking like that. Like that's my freaking. I'm just imagining like I'm
That's the
coming over a
aesthetic.
mountain. You know, that's
Yeah.
what it is. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's so hard to bottle that imagery and communicate it to people in a way that's meaningful. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's the beauty of like what we're all trying to do, I think, in all of our videos. Like I see it in your videos. I try to replicate that in mine, and Dane's obviously as well. Dane, you had a funny tweet today that you posted of like just the word vomit in the notes app that you had that you're like, I swear to God, this schizo word vomit will turn into a coherent video. But that's how it goes. And I've even said that in the past, like, because people are like, how do you come up with like the ideas for your videos and like the connections, like from intro to conclusion seems like an entirely different thing, but it somehow turns out coherent. And I've always said it in the way that like, I don't think in words, I think in like symbols, and I think in like, I'm like, this means this, but I have no idea how the fuck I'm going to make sense of that. And it's up to me to like put the words in there because I see the end of it. It's just like, how do I convey this idea? And that's the struggle. Because if I could just throw up photos and a song like you do in an edit, you convey an idea in an edit. You know what I mean? But like to
That's
be able to do it through poetry or something is like it's a different kind of ball game. And you might be able to get more people on board who maybe wouldn't get the idea through the edit. Now you understand through my words, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I always tell people that edits, I think there are edits that actually are like a legitimate art form. Edits get, that it's, I mean, some of them is just loud noises and flashing images, but some of them are truly beautiful and put something into imagery and sounds that you cannot put into words. And I want to capture some of that when I speak, and it's a fundamentally different art form for sure. And sometimes I wish I could make a baller edit that just like that light, or it just like you feel
Speaks
the
in the same
power
way. Yeah,
in a way that you just can't with words. But we get close, and at least with words, there's of course you can delve into deeper topics and more
Nuance,
complex
yeah.
topics. But I think edits can obviously be very powerful, and I think people are too quick to write them off as kind of nonsense entertainment.
Yeah, because the low end of that is like completely not desaturated. What's the word? It's like they make the video like really dim. It's like she left me, bro.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
like
yeah,
cut
those-
fantasy gym stuff.
Oh my gosh,
that's
dude.
that's the low ball right
Yeah.
there.
That stuff drives me up a wall, dude. It's just like the modern world is just so cucked in everything. Everyone, it's the same I see with like those whole grind set millionaire edits where it's like, oh, your wife leaves you, but then you buy crypto and get a bunch of models, and it's just, why does it always have to start with your wife leaving you or your wife sleeping with someone else, or like, why? What is this cuck fantasy that everyone is freaking buying into?
They want revenge, is what they want. There is this constant issue. This is what I struggle with in high school a lot, and like the very first part of college after my first breakup, which was just that you want to be so successful that it hurts another person, which is
Yep.
bad.
Yeah. We all started there.
Yeah, you're
100%.
transforming your self-improvement into a weapon. The only thing it's going to do is stab yourself at the end of the day. You're carrying the spear backwards.
Dude, I completely resonate with that. I remember because like I went through a bad breakup when I was 16 years old. My first girlfriend, we were together for like a year and a half. Found out she had been cheating on me like over the whole summer, where I was kind of like I had like broken my arm pretty badly. I had like a I was not like bedridden, but I just wasn't going out and doing the same stuff. And like yeah, long story short, got cheated on. It was the first time I had like true heartbreak, and then that's when I wanted to like get in shape because I was a pretty fat kid, and like that's what sparked it all. And I kind of came to this realization later on that like the reason that I had never been able to like truly achieve the fitness goals that I'd set out for myself in a very like deep and esoteric way was because my aim ultimately was in the wrong direction. It wasn't out of
Mm-hmm.
self-improvement, it was out of revenge and just trying to like be who I thought was the antithesis of the person that I was when I was hurt. You know what I mean? And I was really just fighting myself the whole time when really I should have been working with myself, for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of brings me back to the idea of, like you said, like the mindset thing, because I think that that is the most crucial aspect of any sort of self transformation, especially when it starts as something as simple as, like you said, a guy who wants to get in shape for the first time. They don't really know where to start, so they hire a coach or a trainer like yourself. And your like main job obviously is you give them, like you said, you give them the biomechanical knowledge and the nutrition knowledge, but at the end of the day they just want results. But the only way that they're truly going to get there and it's going to be sustainable is if their mindset shifts. And so the most important thing that you can do as a coach is to provide that mindset shift, which is not it's not obvious in any way. And that's the beauty of a coach, you know?
Yeah. And you learn by doing with that. It's kind of like to use. I'm pulling a weird example here, but when people talk about like quitting pornography or whatever, they talk
Mm-hmm.
about some things don't get into you. Like you don't get things out of your system. They get into your system when you do them. You
Right.
know.
100%.
So you kind of abuse that same approach with training and stuff. Like the mindset shift doesn't happen by all this philosophizing and whatnot. But that's the bait. That's the bait that I lay out. That's my little bear
Yeah.
trap that I have for people. Because if you take an individual who is prone to be this intellectual that thinks of themselves, oh, I'm so above, all this vain training and whatnot. But then I bait you, and you're like, yes, well, I do agree that beauty does have an inherent moral quality to it. Now I've locked you into a narrative, and because I know you're an egotistical individual, you won't capitulate, and my hope is that you'll relinquish in my favor. You know?
Interesting. I like that thinking because, yeah, I feel most people would not understand that game, I don't think. Or they wouldn't
Yeah.
think that that's how it happens.
Yeah, in my mind that's how it happens because I know that I'm neurotic and motivated by negative emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm really trying to target myself at an earlier stage in life with my coaching with the mindset shifts I'm trying to elicit, then I'm basically just looking out for my own thought patterns. And this is what inspired me, partially my brother as well, to read
Mm-hmm.
Evola because I had heard he had mentioned some of this stuff about understanding others through yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and understanding the world in general through your own experience because it's the thing you can speak truest to, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know, like you go to college and you realize, hey, I'm not that unique of an individual, especially if you sit on a podcast with two other dudes with long hair and a mustache, and you get mustache mogged to oblivion. Okay, so you're first of all you're not that cool of an individual, and you're not super special and good at what you do. So that applies across the board. Like it's a hit to the ego at first, and you realize, oh wait, you know, you
Yeah,
can
it's
you
all
can
it's
me.
kind of it's kind of liberating in a sense, really.
Right.
absolutely.
Um, we were kind of talking about this on a previous episode that hasn't come out as of this point, but a lot of people who think of themselves as intellectuals, especially online, they get down these rabbit holes where they kind of get this idea that there's like savant genius that's above all the masses, and they're just prisoners in their own world. But physical discipline, like the gym, you'll learn pretty quick. No matter how special you think you are, that weight does not change, and if you can't move it, you can't move it.
Yep.
No,
there,
same thing
there's
with
no
wrestling too.
You can't weasel
yes.
your way out of that. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. If you're not the guy, you are not going to be able to LARP your way out of getting your ass kicked.
See, I think that that's like the one of the most beneficial takeaways that I ever got from reading someone like Mishima, who talks about how he's like, I was this guy, and like I thought that I had everything because I was so smart and I was so well read and I was such a great writer and all these things, but I realized that it was all vanity and it was all bullshit because I wasn't actually the guy physically. And it's like you could argue in the other direction and say, well, the physical stuff, that's all vanity too. Like who actually needs to be strong and who needs to be sexy. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, it's because that is like real reality where there's also reality, but there's like, Henry Rollins, I think, was the one who basic in one of his books said like, 100 pounds is always 100 pounds. Like you can't change that. And he says, I can't remember the exact quote, but something about the iron and how the iron is the greatest teacher because of that reason. It's like it will never lie to you. It will never deceive you. It will never allow you to think that you're greater than you are. Like you are exactly what you are in the weight room because that's never going to change.
Yeah, Charles Bronson has some similar takes on that. I don't know if you know him. English
Great
newspapers.
act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, not the actor. The
Okay.
prisoner in Britain. The
Okay.
Tom Hardy movie and whatnot. Yeah.
Gotcha.
He changed. That's not his real name. He changed it.
Yeah.
To
There's a
be
good
like,
band named after him. That's how I've learned about him.
But yeah, it's like with the whole physical discipline thing and like looking a certain way is important. Looking and behaving a certain way. This was one of the hardest pills for me to swallow. Because I kind of had that same mindset. It's like, why don't people like me? I'm a decent guy. I'm a nice guy. You know? And it's like, no, you're not. If you're maladjusted, if in some sense people don't jive with you, and you're not, I would look at other people, like in the circle and be like, why am I not like them? Why do people seem to enjoy their company, or they see them as these physical paragons? Even when I was like, I am physically stronger than this dude, and I look better. What separates me? It's the fact that I'm maladjusted. I did not go through the trials. There's gonna be some people in life that are that guy. They're gonna come in ninth grade, be 180 pounds of raw muscle, and you can't do anything about that. So if you find that you're one of these maladjusted individuals, it's up to you to refine yourself through the iron by grounding yourself. It's literally grounding yourself.
Yes, it's a grounding.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting because like Plato speaks of this. You have to have the integration of the physical body and the mental in order to become the sort of individual who achieves eudaimonia or like flourishing, right? You can't have one without the other.
Which he uses music actually for studies in the Republic, which I think is an interesting parallel with what I'm doing.
Totally, no, exactly, because music is that art form that's going to like call to you mentally because it's going to challenge your ability to like sort of just like the actual structure of the music, like it's math in a way, but at the same time because it's also artistic, it calls to the spirit. So it's really like the blending of all the three things, and because it's also a physical practice, you could say music too. So it's like it's the perfect art form to use. And I think that that's also why when you have like child savants, most typically they're like these incredible violinists or something like that. That's like the what do you say? It's like the stereotype is like the
musical
kid from China
genius,
who's 4 years old, and they're like a violinist prodigy, that kind of thing. And I think it's because music hits all those bases. So like if you're a truly intelligent individual, like who's well adjusted and all those things, like maybe music is a good representation of that, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. But okay, so on the topic of physical strength, one of the people in my Discord, they wanted me to ask you, what do you think are some sort of like standards for physical strength, or just like physical capability? Like what do you as a trainer aim to see in individuals who maybe don't necessarily have a goal? Like what is something that you could give to people to be like, this is a reasonable goal, this is something you should aim for?
As much as I tend to reject powerlifting centrism within the gym world, squat, bench, deadlift, right?
Right.
I feel like that's always a good metric. And you guys spoke about at one point in time, like, modern day rites of passage for man.
Oh, yeah.
There's really not that, and I think the old bench 225, squat 315, deadlift 405,
Yeah.
that is an excellent rite of passage.
Yeah.
I still have my what is it, 405 deadlift saved in my phone from back when I did it, and I
Nice.
remember I was like, it's still in my profile somewhere maybe, but like we scroll way back. But yeah, like that is like a good standard. You know what I mean? If we're
Hmm.
talking more aesthetic standards, that's where it becomes a lot more of an interesting conversation
Totally.
because it's really just like once you get down lean, then you can see where your strong points are, and then you can build around that. So then we're talking more so like an FFMI, a fat free mass index.
Yeah.
So like then there's like hard numbers for that. I forget them offhand, but it's like um if you're like above, what is it, if you're in the neighborhood of 23, 24, that's a pretty good goal to shoot for. Then pushing the envelope with the 25s and 26s.
You're talking like BMI?
FFMI, fat free mass index.
Oh, okay, okay.
BMI is just like your overall mass. We're like, if we're
Hmm.
talking just strictly lean tissue, right? But that's a bit harder to calculate. But yeah, I think if you're talking just strength standards, those three are really good, like for a high schooler. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
When you get past that point as a rite of passage, that's when I think it's worth specializing into whatever it is that interests you about training. Like for me, it's basically purely aesthetic purposes.
Hmm.
I do like being strong as a consequence because it's cool.
Yes.
But
Makes you feel
it's
powerful.
yeah. You had a
Yeah.
video that was excellent, comparing skateboarding to bodybuilding as a form of artistic self-expression, and that really resonated with me because I was like, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing here. It's an art project. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. No, is it because unlike something where because obviously like there when it comes to the aesthetic portion, you have bodybuilding shows, and you could say that that is like the ultimate thing. And in skateboarding, of course, there's competitions, but at the end of the day, the spirit of it is really just like radical self improvement
mhm.
towards something that is inspiring. And like really that because I grew up skateboarding, and me and my friends, we were watching skate videos since we were like 11 years old, and it was just one of those things where I kind of thought it was so interesting how me and my friends would be just captivated watching these videos of guys skating, and they're just like doing these things that it's like we've seen it before, and maybe it's the same spot and somebody's doing the same trick, but somebody does it just a little bit differently, and it's an entirely new thing. And that's when I realized I was like, oh, this is art. This is like just your personal self-expression. The way that you kickflip an eight stair is not going to be the same way that somebody else kickflips an eight stair. In the same
Mhm.
way that in bodybuilding, it's like what are we shooting for? We're shooting for the golden ratio of like that your biceps are the same size as your neck and calves, and your
That's
waist is 0.752 whatever. And but it's like at the end of the day, everybody's going to be different. So it's like it's a noble pursuit for everybody.
that kind of changed my whole mind. When I first got back into the gym after wrestling and all that, at first it was just lift heavy, like I wanted to feel strong, powerful, all those things. And then I read about, I can't remember if it was Steve Reeves or another bodybuilder. So
Mm-hmm.
bodybuilder was talking about they don't train certain muscles because it would throw off their proportions. And that's when
Mhm.
I kind of realized it's more of an art than just like a
It's like a science almost.
yeah, and there's art and science and art. It's just like
Yeah.
it kind of just shifted my philosophical perspective because I'm like, it's not just you trying to become this giant balloon monster, right? It's like there's some real sort of art and science to it. It takes brain power. It's not, you can't just put in pure raw effort. Of course, you need the effort. You can't pussyfoot around the gym, right? But you
Mhm.
have to apply that effort in very specific ways. And I don't think people understand how cerebral bodybuilding can be as a sport.
Yeah, it spawned a lot of characters like Mike Mincer, whose favorite philosopher was Ayn Rand. Um, but like the idea, first of all, about not training certain body parts so they don't develop as quickly is a much more of a silver era thing that kind of bled over into the golden era, which I enjoy. Silver era bodybuilding is
What would
where
that be considered, like time wise?
this is like basically from the genesis of bodybuilding. Well, not Genesis is Bronze Age. Um, like Steve Reeves era, who you mentioned, that's a silver era bodybuilder.
Probably say like
Okay.
mid 50s to like the 70s is probably
Yeah,
silver
this is
era.
where you see I'm not very history brained because remembering
That's
dates
okay.
and such is difficult for me.
Yeah, but definitely like gold era started with like Arnold and Frank Zane and all those guys, right? And they were
Which
like mid
Frank
70s
Frank took a lot of inspiration from the silver era dudes, really
for
more so
sure.
than Arnold.
Hmm.
Arnold is kind of the paragon, the guy who coined a lot of the golden era stuff. But the
Yeah.
interesting interplay there is also with the fact that there is science and then there's what we call bro science, right? Which is really just like alchemy and science. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
We have things that we believe elicit a certain effect, and whether they're true or not, we would like to believe they are true, and so we go full steam ahead into doing that. Prime
Yeah.
example, I posted a video about doing Frank Zane's ab routine, which did screw me up for 2 days.
Oh, I did see that. That was intense.
It was pretty brutal. I did not even complete. Hour and a half of sit-ups is pretty brutal. I made it
Unreal.
5 minutes with a band, but the idea there is that you are deliberately shrinking the ab musculature in a sense. You're carving it out and you're also shrinking it, which does have a little bit of a scientific precedent in that, if you're training a muscle in a more endurance-like fashion, it will not hypertrophy as much. And in fact, the muscle damage might make it be slightly smaller, especially if it has a decreased amount of glycogen in that area. But overall, if you look at it from a purely scientific perspective, that's going to incur a lot more fatigue. It's going to impede your other sessions. The soreness isn't worth it. The time isn't worth it. But that's not what it's about. Gaines on Instagram has an interesting approach to this. He calls spirit-based bodybuilding, which is that number one, first and principally, your approach should not directly mimic another person's approach, because you're a different warrior spirit going into it in a sense, right? My strong point is my shoulders and my traps really, and I
Jealous.
leverage that.
I
And it's
have
from
no
my
traps.
father.
That's my absolute weak point. And any injury I've ever had has
Perfectly
been a trap,
balanced on
has
this
been a trap
cast.
injury. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy to injure traps as well. I've found
So unfortunate.
Yeah, but it's particularly because I find that they respond well to extremely heavy weights. Like Atlas Power Shrug says, power shrugs will build your freaking upper traps. I mean, it's just that's why I don't train traps really. Like I will train mid traps for my rear delts and like my middle traps in between my shoulder blades.
Yeah.
I don't do any shrugging, right? Because it will dominate and it will make me look less wide.
Yeah.
Which is my father's problem. He just likes to train his traps because he likes huge traps.
Right. Yeah, well, see, when I first got into bodybuilding, I got kind of like not memed into, but the idea that like, oh, you don't want to overdevelop this, and like you want to develop wide lats because that's going to give you a better shape and overall blah blah blah. But when you first fucking start, bro, your weak point is everything. You don't have to worry
don't major in
about
the minors.
don't major in the minors. So I was one of those guys who was just specifically training only like horizontal or vertical pulling movements because I wanted to get wider, and I neglected horizontal pulling movements because I was like, that's not important. And then for like bench, I would like only do incline because I'm like, the upper chest is what really matters. But then it's like when you got a weak bench and like you have a weak row, it's like that's not cool either. And then I ended up incurring a trap injury and seeing my physical therapist about it and all. She's probably like, yeah, probably just because your traps are weak. And I'm like, yeah, that fucking makes sense. I've never trained them. I've actually specifically tried to take them out of movements to not fuck with my V taper. And it's like, bro, my V taper, like what am I doing?
Yeah, there's
got
to be something to taper,
Yeah, exactly.
You can't taper a rectangle, but it's that's precisely where I was in high school, and why I actually pursued an exercise science degree was because I was like, this is this mystery I can unravel with the power of science. And
Yeah,
it's
you
like
can figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, dude. Like the deeper you get into exercise science, the more you're just kind of like, we know like basic shit, and that's about it. But I was there. I was doing the same things where it was like really focused on vertical pulling. Like I wish I could like have it on hand. It's up in the attic right now. But I have all these old workout plans. It would feel like at least once a month I would sit down and I would audit my workout plan and be like, okay, here's my new schizophrenic workout plan that's going to optimize every single variable I can think of.
Everything. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. When you optimize everything, you optimize nothing.
Dude,
You know what I'm saying?
we're so similar in that degree. I've even talked about how sometimes there'd be like if I didn't have like if I wasn't at my normal gym that I would go to, if I was at like a hotel, or even if I was like there'd be times where I'm like at the beach and I've like dude, I've got so much energy right now, like I could do a little workout, and I would sit there for like 20-30 minutes thinking about what would the most optimal workout to do right now. It's like I just wasted 20 minutes I could have been training. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The hardest thing for me, because growing up, I've struggled with obsessive compulsive tendencies, and it's letting perfect be the enemy of good.
100%.
And that's something that you talk about just from a general coaching perspective. But with anything that I'm doing, I have to constantly fight that because
Yeah.
I do get obsessed with like these platonic ideals, as it were, of like how things should be and how I should go about doing them.
Yeah.
And if I can't achieve that, it really irks me, especially if it has a time related component to it.
Percent. Yeah, that throws everything off. And it is kind of one of those things too where you realize because it's almost like we're like fucked in this weird way where we have so much knowledge about proper training and nutrition and everything that it's like you realistically like you could be perfect. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it's like it's not feasible. And for a lot of people, because they can't be perfect, they're just going to not even do anything. And if
Yeah,
you didn't even have the knowledge of perfection in the first place, maybe if I just told you go to the gym and do what you like, you'd probably have like more gains than the guy who's suffering over
And
whether or
that's
not
why
you
the
have a perfect
Chad
plan.
Jock star quarterback is the most likable individual because he's not
Yep.
neurotic. You know.
Yep.
it's funny. Back when I first got into the gym, and I didn't really know what I mean. I had trained in the gym before, but I didn't know all this, science based stuff. I didn't have that in my head. I just saw, guys doing a bunch of heavyweight. And I there's so much that I can look back and say, that was fucking stupid. Why am I doing 9 sets of different kinds of bench and dips and shoulder press in the same workout? That's just fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But I made most of my gains in that period just because I was putting in the effort, I was enjoying myself, and kind of the whole beginner gains or whatever too. And now it's like I've made most of the musculature I'm going to make in my life, and now it's that smaller and smaller, diminishing returns or what have you, which is great because I want to reach my best. But if I had majored in the minors at the beginning, I might not have gotten to this point because it would have stressed me out. And sometimes now I have to just be like, this might not be the most optimal movement. I don't need to research it. I know it feels good. I know it works well. It has worked well. You just do the damn movement.
Yeah,
And
I mean, we did that when you were in town. We went and hit the gym, and we were like, "What are we gonna hit today?" We're just like, "Let's just fucking do whatever
Yeah,
feels good and
yeah.
everything." Just try to
And
get,
those type of workouts are better anyways. Like
They're
as
the
far as like the
best.
feel of them, you're like,
Yeah.
wow, like I feel connected in a weird way.
Yeah, you finish a set of bench, and you're like, "What are we gonna do now?" It's like, I don't know. That shoulder machine looks really enticing right now, and it's like you just go hit it. Like, don't think about it. Just
Or
go
like
and
you're trying to
rip
punish your buddy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like mess with him a little bit.
it. Yeah. That's why we did it. We did pull-ups to failure at the end of our workout last time. I've got that video, but
Person who quits first is a bitch, and then you just go do that. That's what
Yeah,
I
you're
really
buying
miss
lunch.
from football. Really,
uh-huh.
like that sort of thing. They're always having those like challenges and whatnot. Man,
yeah,
I had
training
I had
with
it,
a-
but I lost it.
Yeah, but no, but you're right. Training with a partner or with a group, if you can find them, there's nothing better than that. Like the most gains I ever made in my life was when I was working at this smoothie place with another guy who was a competitive bodybuilder. He was like in the midst of having just done his first show, was like on the way to doing his next show. And in that year, I like put on more muscle than I had in the rest of my life since then, just because like training with a friend is and not even just because they can help you with like the drop sets and cheat reps and stuff like that, but just like having another person there cheering you
Mm-hmm.
on and making sure that you hit your numbers. Because if you don't, it's like, I know you did an extra 2 reps last week. Like, what the fuck
Yeah.
happened, you know?
No, you're sandbagging. It's the classic Gilgamesh and Enkidu relationship there. You know,
Yeah.
who sidebar. Every time I bring them up, me and another person will get into an argument about whether they were gay or not, and I
You could
will
do that with
die on.
every person in history.
Yeah, I will die on the hill that they were not. I wrote an essay about it, but that is a complete sidebar.
Are we gonna see it on Instagram soon?
Absolutely not, because the person I got into the argument with first was my fiance, and that was our first like real argument. Was
Wow.
whether or not they were gay.
How funny.
But she understands my position, and I understand hers, and we have a boundary that we're not allowed to bring it up. So
Fair enough.
That is incredibly healthy. We should have a whole separate podcast where we talk about relationship advice because that's very smart. A lot of guys could benefit greatly from understanding that. Um, last thing on the fitness. I think it's important, especially for people who are listening to this who maybe like haven't seen your content before or are interested in like getting lined up with a coach. What are your sort of like? What would you say are your main philosophical principles surrounding training? Like, what is the thing that you offer people that you don't think every coach would?
yeah, I think it's just the fact that I'm almost, this is so terrible for me to say, I'm almost like a sacrificial figure in the sense that, hey guys, I made the mistake of going out here and getting an exercise science degree and like
Huh.
doing something incredibly lunar and base and devoting a lot of time to being really good at science,
Yeah.
to the point that I can do so much for you as far as, oh, you have a pre-existing injury, we can work around that, like para PT type stuff.
Mm.
um at the same time, I'm also very good at eliciting a mindset change generally. Which, one of my clients, Landon, and another one of them, oh my gosh, Trevor. That's what I've noticed the most in them is just how quickly the switch can flip when you're put into that session.
Mm.
Um, at the end of the day, nothing, and this is to pull the curtain. I'm Oz, right? I'm pulling back the curtain here. At the end of the day, when you hire a personal trainer, I am slightly more qualified than your average personal trainer in that I've been training for a number of years. I have a master's degree, but it's really just like, who are you going to respect? If you come across my content, you respect me as a person, you respect my overall vibe, you think I'm a cool dude, you're much more likely to buy into my training.
Hmm.
There's a saying in this business which is, you don't people don't buy coaching, they buy you.
Yep.
And so it's really just like, do you see me as enough of an authority figure in order to trust me? And that what I just did right there was terrible marketing, because I just removed everything from it. But that's
But
really
at the
what I
end,
offer.
yeah, and at the end of the day too, it's like I think the most important thing, especially like any sort of like fitness program or any fitness anything that I've ever actually purchased and paid money for, came from individuals that basically gave away all of their programming and everything for free. And like it gave away all the, because like you give away all the information for free because it's technically all out there. But now it's like to have somebody who's going to hold you accountable, or like you said, even respect. Like for example, the guy who got me into training was Greg O'Gallagher, the Kino Body
Yeah,
programs. Have you seen those?
I've heard
Yeah.
the name Grego Gallagher before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came across one of his videos in 2019, and this was like a year after I had started training. Didn't really like have any direction or know exactly what I was doing, but I started following him because I saw a video and I was like, oh, I'm super into the aesthetic, and like I like his mindset and that sort of thing around training. And then you go visit his Instagram and he tells you all of his workouts, he tells you his split, he tells you his philosophy behind it all, why he's doing this many sets, why this many reps, why these workouts, why you should eat this diet, and these are the exact foods and exact meals. And it's like, why would you even buy the program at that point? He just gave away all the information for free. But at the end of the day, I was like, but I respect him so much for that. And because
Hmm.
like I want whatever little thing might go slightly deeper by buying the program, I want that. And so then I paid for it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
That's
it was one of the best
consolidation.
decisions
Yeah.
I ever made, you know? And
Hmm.
I think that that's like really the sauce is like if you're that guy, like you can give away all the information for free. People will pay you because you're you and they want you as their coach.
Yeah. The problem is, with my, what is it? Well, with my knowledge as far as like all the scientific stuff goes. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really want to be associated with the quote unquote science based lifting crowd, which is what I was naturally given to. Like that's what was
Yeah.
hype when I was coming up, and that's what I enjoy. I actually really enjoy talking about it, the little nitty gritty details. But
Yeah.
number one, I don't think it does. I don't think it attracts the crowd that I jive with on social media. Generally speaking, and it's also just becomes very contrarian. It's like, oh, you said this, but actually it's slightly more like this. It's like, yes, well, I consolidated information into as short of a reel as I could in order to get your attention, and do good for the
I
algorithm.
only
to
had
promote
3 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
did my absolute best, and then I provided more nuance in the caption, which you didn't read, and then you're going ahead and taking a bad faith argument so you could prove you're smarter than me. Like I just don't like playing that game.
It's
So,
it's an I'm not a fitness creator really. I mean, I talk about fitness more broadly and everything,
sponsored
but
by Rascal. I'm not a fitness creator.
I'm actually dropping my welcome post soon with them, but
Oh,
separate
nice.
topic. But I observe the fitness niche and especially the science-based lifting niche is more of like a from the perspective of a creator and like seeing creator dynamics and culture, how like the culture shifts and stuff. And I don't hate all of the science-based lifting community. In fact, I have a few mutuals in that
Oh, yeah,
community
100%.
that I like, and some of them I just watch for entertainment. I think they're entertaining guys. But it's weird how, like you said, I think a lot of people I wouldn't associate with are attracted to that kind of training. And the vitriol in the how almost like ideologically angry people get when they're talking about like the smallest difference in something, where it's like I'm making this up, but your hand position on a pull down, and you've got two people like basically at the point of giving each other death threats over this. And I'm like, wouldn't that energy just be better into going into your training? Like, what is this whole it's such a hateful, spiteful niche, and that's why I think it kind of helps you like visualize other spaces, because you see when you create history content, people will argue with you about the smallest details too. You see it in politics. You see all these behaviors play out. But it's interesting that fitness has become one of the most like volatile in that sense.
It's
Yeah.
because science at its most granular becomes philosophy.
Yeah.
It's just eating its own tail. So where you have it's like the classic like midwit thing where like the bell curve, the worst IQ in the world to have is 110 because you're just barely smarter than average. But so like everyone
Greg
in the
says
middle is,
just lift heavy, eat protein, and then in the middle you've got everything else, and then at the end of it, 145 IQ, you're like eat protein and lift heavy.
well, yeah, all the early heuristics constantly get what's the word? Not it's not vilified. It's vindicated.
Vindicate.
Yeah,
I always get vilified and vindicated switched. I've done that so many
vilified
times.
is like villain. Villain. I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, they just get supported. The more stuff that comes out,
It shows
the
how
more-
intuition is so powerful. I mean, these guys had it mostly figured out
I have
decades
to
prior.
I have to subvert that all the time. Like in everything I do, it's just like whenever I find myself in my head about something, I'm like, hey, go with your gut instinct. This is something I had to
Yeah.
learn early on because I was as a hyper perfectionist taking tests in school. I have this terrible habit of like marking an answer, being unsure, and then going back and picking the second answer I was sure with, and I was
Ugh.
right on the first one like 95% of the time. And then once I learned
Yeah.
that lesson of just like go with your gut, like if you're unsure, go with your gut. Because sitting there agonizing about it is only gonna piss you off more in retrospect.
Yeah, it's even worse. What is your, I guess, to get like really granular, if you wouldn't mind telling us, what is
Sure.
your split and why? What is the science and what is also the spiritedness behind what you do for yourself?
Yeah, so I actually hire a coach because I really
There you go.
enjoy the accountability. And what is it? I'm also trying to elevate myself because I work with, frankly, some of the best coaches in the game. What is it? Elliot Gibson, Adam Powell, Team Powell Coaching. Elite level naturals. If you guys were shocked by my physique, which I think by no means is like, really even something to sneeze at, these guys, dog. I mean, elite dudes training with people like AJ Morris and Kaife West. or Keefe. But the British dudes, Australian dudes, they're absolutely
Yeah.
insane, top of the game. But yeah, we discuss programming a lot. He knows I know a lot about it, but what I do is a modified upper lower split. And I've been off of it for a couple of days now because my fiance visited. But that's part of
Gotta do
living
what you gotta
life.
do. Yep.
Yeah, I was very worth it. Long distance fiance is not for the weak. She's my princess in a tower, and I'm over here larping like in some sort of Conan the Barbarian type war.
Hey man, absence makes the heart grow fonder. I've been there before, and it's not necessary. It can be tough sometimes. How long distance are you guys?
About 3 hours.
Okay, it's not the end of
It's
the world, but it's
not the
it's
end of the
pretty
world.
it's pretty far.
At this stage in life where we're working on buying a house, it's fairly rough on a teacher salary. So we're
Yeah.
both working. We're both working. But yeah, modified upper lower. So the emphasis at this point in time is my quads and my lats. So I have decent. My shoulders solid, right? But we need to build out the sweep of the lats a lot more. And we're on a gaining phase right now. The quads in particular is something I struggle immensely with because I do have longer femurs relative to my tibia, and I've also just struggled with squats in general as a pest. Like I love squatting patterns, but making my quads work for me and actually grow has been a major challenge, and that's where actually knowing exercise science has come in and saved me tremendously, and continuing my knowledge with that.
Nice.
So like that's where I feel like some of the old school heuristics kind of failed me, like taking the Tom Platz approach, which I have done like full Platz leg days and whatnot. I used to train that religiously back in high school, um, but which was very terrible. But
You can do it when you're in high school, though.
yeah,
You can get away with it a little bit more.
I was brutal. Like some days, like I would be so terrible to walk into school, but I would just do it and then go to football practice like a real G.
Ugh.
Um, but his style of squatting where it's super externally rotated at the hip and you have your toes pointed slightly outward, it's more that duck stance type
Hmm.
squatting. I had to change that. That's why my inner sweep of my quad, I have a very strong teardrop, and I have very strong adductors, but my outer sweep is basically non-existent, and that's
Mm.
my weakness. And so the philosophy behind like the quad training in particular is essentially just, hey, I focus on a lot of internal rotation work because I'm trying to build out the outer sweep of the quad. And that's where I dissent slightly from what a lot of science-based guys would say, which like you really can't meaningfully bias the heads of the quads. And I'd say I see a lot of guys that are built similarly to me, and they all have the same issue as I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you have a short vastus lateralis, the outer, head of the quadricep,
Hmm.
and when I see them squat, they squat similarly to me, or at least how I did.
Right.
So that's where some of the new age stuff can become pretty useful. Generally speaking, I do as much volume as I can get away with and recover from.
Hmm.
That's reasonable and does not affect my performance. I'm
And does
very
that vary by workout, or do you kind of have like a set number that you shoot for?
it varies slightly by workout, but it's actually pretty consistent. So I train 5 days a week, legs 3 times a week, in this stage. But it's like I'm not doing a ton of leg volume each day. It's like it's broken up so that I can get more frequency, which
Are all
just
the
keeps
lower body days strictly lower body though, or do you like integrate?
that's why it's modified. So there's a little
Mm.
bit of upper body work on the lower body days and a little bit of lower body work on one of the upper days.
Got you.
Like for instance, on upper body 2, I will start out actually with stiff-legged deadlifts on the Smith machine. To bottle up what I do essentially, the main skill I've developed across my years of training is a lot of kinesthetic awareness where like I can connect with my muscles really well generally, and I know what I need to do. One of the very first things I took to heart with training was like visualizing the muscle or whatever,
Yeah.
and that played into me
Huge.
really well because as like an amateur artist, I was studying anatomy quite a lot, and now I'm an anatomy teacher, haha. But
Mm.
I would study that, and so like I had sort of an innate sense for the musculature, and I was able to picture that like 3 dimensionally, like while I'm working it, closing my eyes, and feeling it, and that has developed further in the sense that now I can cue internal rotation of the hip and stuff like that pretty well.
Consistently, yeah.
But what I do is a fusion of the new age stuff as well as some of the old age stuff. Every once in a while, I throw in some neck and forearm work just for the hell of it. Neck is one of those things that I actually had to stop training as well because it was just growing too quick and it looked stupid.
Well, dude, that's the thing is like it's those body parts that people tend to neglect that once you start training them, you'll actually start seeing them develop pretty quickly. Like I was
Yeah.
also of the camp of guys who like neglected training abs because I was like I want to have a smaller waist, so why would I train my abs to get bigger kind of thing, you know? But
I
it's
did
like
that with my obliques for sure.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like just have well developed muscles, bro. Like
Yeah.
just and then
Get
once I
leaner.
started actually once I started training my abs a little bit more, then I started like seeing them a little bit more. Obviously getting leaner is the most important thing, but you know, even at the same amount of leanness, the guy who has well developed abs versus the guy who doesn't, you're going to see the guys who has well developed abs more, you know? Another kind of thing the I want to know your thoughts on the recent there's been a couple studies, I think, if I remember correctly, that vindicated the idea of spot reducing fat. And I think that
Yeah.
that was something that was kind of always believed in like the older eras. And then once science kind of started catching up, it's like, no, you can't spot reduce. But then it's like, well, maybe there's like actually something to it.
And this is where I talk about philosophy. When you get, well, I mean, when science gets really granular, it becomes philosophy. Because if you understand a lot of the mechanisms in the body, well, spot reducing fat kind of makes a decent bit of sense. You
Yeah.
know, it's not, there are systemic effects that we have when we're training. You don't get to choose necessarily, like if I'm hot right now, for example, because I got this lamp on and the air conditioner isn't working really well in my room, but
Hmm.
like I don't get to choose which veins vasodilate and get bigger, right?
Right.
In the same sense, I don't get to choose consciously which fats get metabolized during my training. Especially if I am training in the traditional bodybuilding sense, which is what we call glycolytic, meaning it uses sugar. You use
Right.
sugar when you're training primarily. Short, heavy, intense sets, 5 to, say 20 rep range. But if you're doing something like what Frank Zane did, and it's essentially a marathon of ab crunches, hey, that's an endurance exercise actually. Like you're bordering on endurance here.
Yeah.
And that means we're going to use a lot more fat metabolism. Does it make sense for your body to metabolize fats that are further away or close by? Close by.
Close by.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Yeah. Your body will systemically metabolize fats, yes. But also there is that immediate moment that happens there with fat mobilization. So that's why there's a precedent for it. It's not like it's a huge factor, but hey, and all of this bodybuilding science and philosophy, we're talking about optimizing. We're talking about stacking pieces of paper to get to the
Yeah,
moon.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like the 0.1%. Exactly.
Yeah, and so all the crazy shit that you see bodybuilders do is usually a culmination of superstitions, actually, but
Sure.
also, but also just the fact that they're like, hey, this might have a potential to get me that extra 1%, so I'm going to do that.
Why would
right?
you not?
If you, yeah, why would if there's the only reason why you might not is if it's like the stress of adding in that habit takes away from like the main stuff. Like, if you're worried about timing your carbohydrates and your protein so hard that it starts to impair your lifting, just stop worrying about that and get your lifting in. That's much more productive.
Yeah.
Like, you got to avoid majoring in the minors. But yes, if you can, like, I have the energy and I have the resources to make this small optimization, why wouldn't I? You know?
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Very cool. Well, did you have anything else, Dane, that you wanted to throw in?
Well, I was gonna ask, just while you asked a quick little science-based question, I also have one for you. Um, the Kelso shrugs. I know that was a big debate for a while. And for a while, I didn't do them. I thought they were kind of bullshice. But then I tried them, and I felt the burn in the middle of my back in a way I hadn't before. And I was like, okay, so now I work them in. I don't do them exclusively. I still do full rows as well. But I just wanted to hear kind of your opinion, because I know that was such a big freaking argument. You would have thought it was like a political divide or something, the way people
Yeah.
treated it. But
It's one of those things that has been around for a hot minute as well. Like like there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to lifting weights, hardly. But the interesting thing about Kelso Shrugs versus Rose is that yes, they do a similar thing, but I also see people that really worry about like, oh, I don't want my rear delts limiting my mid traps on my Kelso Shrugs. They also do rear delt isolation work and they spam, reverse pec deck as well. So it's kind of like, what if you just got stronger on a chest supported row? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kelso shrugs are a decent thing to add in if you're like, I need specifically more mid trap, and I've had them in my program in times past, and I think they're very worth. I also think they're very easy to to tweak a trap on, which that just comes down to load management. But if you kind of take the Atlas Power Shrugged approach of like, hey, if you're doing a shrug, like lift some heavy weight, and the controlled eccentric is not that important, which is what I found, where it's just like you're hoisting, you're just hoisting.
Yeah.
Kelso Shrug's 100% viable, but I think also like having bulbous rear delts is a major plus to doing your regular chest supported rows. It's just one of those things where it's like these are tools, and people try for social media. It's very useful to make platitudes with anything.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
No matter what the topic is. Yeah. That's
Just
the
because it
social
goes
media game.
Yeah.
Um,
Because if I can make a platitude and then you accept it, or you're arguing with it, that benefits me regardless at the end of the day. And then it just muddies the waters, and that's really the thing that I've hated since the beginning is the muddying of the waters. And so the only thing I can do is like kind of ride the tiger above that and just try my best not to muddy the waters with you need to do these specific things for optimizations. Like everything is contextual, which I hate. You know what I mean? It's kind of almost a funny that the first part of my name Gray, because I'm always like this. Well, it's not really black or white. There's a lot of context and nuance here. Blah blah blah.
Very fitting.
Yeah, that's the running joke in kinesiology, which is the answer to any question is it depends. Which sucks, but
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the beauty in the other style of content that you do. I would say it's probably like your main style of content is just sort of like the web videos, the philosophy and stuff. One of my favorite videos you made obviously is the series on Holy Diver and what Holy Diver means. And so what was it that kind of like kicked off the need that you felt to start like making that sort of content? Were you doing that from the very beginning, or was it originally just fitness stuff and then you started to kind of branch out and be like, I want to share my real ideas?
well, it just came to a point where it's like, in the fitness space, you're oftentimes just communicating the same information 50 different ways, and that's useful to some people because you'd be surprised how many people just don't know about macros or calories and whatnot.
Yeah. You think that you'd never need to say that again, but everybody needs to hear that.
You talk to somebody on the street, and they just don't know. They don't know, the differences there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So with that, it also was just like I feel like I'm not addressing a real problem, because I don't think if I walked up to a 300-pound guy and I was like, "Hey, did you know that if you ate better, you'd be skinnier, you fat fuck?" It's like they're like, yeah, probably. Well, dude, you can actually just track your calories using an app. It's like, yeah, okay, like I get that. That's not my issue. My issue is that I have a psychological problem.
Yes.
It's like, well, let me try and connect with you a little bit. What type of music do you listen to? Oh yeah, dude, I like Dio. Oh, dude, let me tell you about my thoughts on Dio. Right? And then if I tell you my thoughts on Dio and I can, gaslight you and subvert you enough to say like, hey, he was kind of like this cool character and he represents a lot of these ideals. And they're like, maybe I should start taking my health more seriously. If I really and truly resonate with the music that you're talking about, you have just successfully Trojan horsed fitness into me. Which, every once in a while someone's saying, oh, bro, you don't actually understand anything. You're just shilling, for your business, which is like half true. You know what I mean? But it's like, I'm genuinely passionate about these topics and I like talking about them.
No, and you're well spoken in them too. Like when I was watching that video, like there was truly a lot of light bulbs going off and connections where, I mean, you could do that with any song, right? You can like kind of like cut through to the deeper meaning. But that was something about like that song that I had never caught before, like the sort of Christ-like figure bringing salvation to different. I didn't even realize it was like different planets. Like maybe I just never paid
Hmm.
attention to the lyrics
Well,
enough. But
that's just what Dio said. I actually didn't pick up on that. Like I was going on my
mm.
own rabbit hole, and somebody said, "Well, Dio's already freaking spoken on this," and I was like, "What?"
Oh, okay, there you go.
I
Yeah.
didn't even I'm bad about that sometimes where
Uh-huh.
I really and that's kind of why I enjoy Evelo a little bit where he's just like this is the way things are, homie, and
Yeah.
my interpretation is the only one that's real right now because I'm ordained, right, which I love
Right.
hearing other people's interpretations and things of that nature, but like I'm bad about this. I didn't even think, oh, what has Dio said about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super interesting. On the topic of Evola, because you made a video on revolt against the modern world recently. What was did you have kind of like an intro to philosophy getting into that, or like I know you said that your brother was a big influence on you. What was kind of the pathway towards sort of like philosophy in that direction?
Yeah, so I remember reading The Republic when I was in high school, and I
Was
just
it
loved
for high
that.
school, or you just did it on your own?
I just read it.
There you go. Okay, love
Yeah.
that. Because I know some people are like, "Oh, they had a philosophy class in my high school." I'm like, "What the hell? Like, we didn't have
No,
that."
we didn't have that. No.
I think it's a
we read.
European thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we read
And we
Beowulf
kind of
in my
did,
English class
but
though.
Oh, you did?
Um,
Okay.
well,
Interesting.
it
but
was
only
it
in
was a humanities class, so technically it was philosophy, architect. It was like all that kind of stuff, like wrapped
Had to
into
lump it all
one.
together because it's not
Yeah.
fucking important and nobody cares.
yeah.
But it did get the ball rolling for me a little bit, so
Yeah, yeah.
I'll give it credit there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't read like the entire Western canon or whatever. I'm
Sure.
actually not extremely well read, I would say. Um, I really pick up stuff from music and like when I do read something, it's usually I'm very selective about it. It has to really pique my interest in some sort of way, and I think
Hmm.
the reason Evelyn did that is because it's suggested by my brother, and it's just the title of that book. I was like, you know what, I'm really just feeling that right now. Like I'm kind of sick of some junk around me, and so I started
Yeah.
reading that, and
It's a
I
very
found a lot
metal
of
title, I think.
So is
yeah.
Ride the Tiger. He knew how to name books, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
sounds even better in like Italian, which I would butcher, so I won't repeat it. But it's just like, La Tigre, which is a Decepticon song, which is not at all metal, but it just stuck out to me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna say this, and it might be a little hypocritical because I talk so much about reading and history and all these things. I think
You
reading
don't know how
like
to read.
I'm actually illiterate. No, but I do think reading like the greats and reading in general and consuming it's overrated. I'm not saying that you shouldn't read great books. I'm not saying that there's not value in them, but I think there has to be some level of potential in you. There's only so much an external source can provide you,
Yeah.
add to your life, if you will. And there's things like I think there are books that I resonate more with that other people wouldn't find as valuable and vice versa. And I think that's okay, right? We don't have to universally agree, this is the greatest book, this is the second greatest book, this is the third greatest book. It's like, at the end of the day, what does it do for you? How does
Yeah,
it,
nor what
when
we're
you
gaining
read
from
it,
the book.
yes, how do you apply how it resonated with you to your life? Does it make your life better? Does it make the lives of those you interact with better? Um,
Hmm.
so at the end of the day, because you see all these people and they like debate the great authors, and it's like, no, you should read these books in this order, and you can get into all that, but I don't take the book LARP too far. I like to read what I like to read, and I
Yeah.
Hmm.
gain the insight that I feel like I gain from it, and that's that. I'm not obsessed with optimizing. It's almost like lifting, right?
Yeah.
I'm not trying
Everything's
to
like lifting.
major in the
Dude, so real. Lifting is life. It just like it's a perfect representation of everything that we're trying to do.
The ultimate
And
microcosm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And on that topic of like the books and stuff, like one of the questions I probably get in my DMs more than any other question, I'm sure you guys same thing. What books should I read?
Yes. Oh my
What
gosh.
are your book
Yes.
recommendations? And I'm not here to say that that's a dumb question, but please don't ask me that question unless you have a if you're like some people have said, "Hey, I want to learn more about this. I want to learn more about the
Yeah.
Proto-Indo-Europeans. What
Yeah,
books do
that's
I read? It's like, okay, then you should read this book. But if you're just gonna say, and I even have some, I had one person message me and they were like, "What books do I read to be like you?" And I'm like,
yes.
bro,
I'm like,
I'm like, I don't know. Every book I've ever read in my entire life, plus every movie I've ever seen, plus every song I've ever listened to, plus every every person I've ever had a friendship with. It's like, what are you talking about? Like,
I
you're not gonna
Hey man,
gain.
can I
You're
steal
not
your
gonna.
swag?
Yeah, you're not gonna become like me from reading the same words in a book that I also read. So it's like it's a
what
bad
I
starting
tell
place. But
people when they ask that question and I answer, if I can't answer, I say you don't put the cart before the horse. I never set out with like I'm going to start with this book and then this one. It's like I just
yeah,
read shit that captivated me and I went down that rabbit hole and that would lead me to two more things.
yeah,
So you just have to find what interests you and pull that thread and follow it. And I also think that's where experiences come in too, right? Like you were a football player, you skated and you were a firefighter. I was a wrestler. I kicked. I mean, doing things in real life ultimately is going to give you more than you could lock yourself in a room with a million books and never leave your whole life. And
That's
what would
essentially
you
meant
have to
for the
show for it?
underground by Dostoevsky. You know,
yeah. I was gonna say, I was like, David Hume did this also.
See, and I haven't read either of those. But yeah, you can't replicate. So I'm sure we all get those. Like Joe, yeah. How do I become like you? It's like, well, first of all, you need half of my dad's genetics and half my mom's genetics. It is. We're all individuals, and you can't. I can't give you a course in how to become me, but I can help you hopefully find the motivation and the tools to become the best version of yourself, and that's all we can provide people.
Yeah, the best thing to do would just be like if you're interested in becoming smarter. I'm actually like I mentioned in the past that I started writing a video about this. I couldn't figure out how to make it interesting because it's like the most boring topic ever. But basically the premise of the video is if you want to get smarter, you got to just write essays. And like it can be as long as one page, but I genuinely think the thing that has given me more insight and more understanding is even just journaling, just writing a page in a journal about an idea that you have. Because one of the things, like we were talking about earlier, we're thinking in these ideas and all those things are floating around, but like if you can't put them into words, do you actually understand it? Do you actually know what you're talking about? And like I'm not gonna say somebody one of my friends Peyton, he does All Tales official. He posted on a story asking like, is vocabulary a barrier for intelligence? Because like if you don't have the right words or the ability to convey something in the proper way, do you truly hold that idea like to the degree that it makes you more intelligent, or is it not even like intelligence on your part because you can't convey that idea? All this to say, I think sitting down and trying to write your thoughts in a coherent manner that you could show to somebody else and be like, does this make sense? That's like what's really going to make you smarter. So anything that you read, you should like write it down. I'm trying to figure out how to turn that into a video that's not the most boring fucking thing you've ever heard in your entire life, but we'll get there.
yeah.
I definitely. I mean, it's kind of what content creation is for us in a sense. At least for me, it's almost a form of it's a form of essay writing and journaling, maybe poetry even sometimes. But it's a form of we have these thoughts and ideas that are great because people resonate with them, but it takes effort to articulate them to the degree where we can tell someone in an audience scrolling through Instagram what we think and have them understand it.
And I'll be wrong too. Be willing to
Oh
be
yeah.
wrong. Just write your ideas down and just be like, what do you guys think of this? And everybody's like, you're a dumb fuck. And you're like, oh shit. Okay, well, I'll try again. I'll try again later. Next time.
Failure is always part of the game.
Well, see, that's what essay literally means. Essay comes from the French meaning to attempt or to try. So when you're writing an essay, what you're really doing is you're making
I never knew that.
Yeah, you're making an attempt at something.
Dude, I think that's the beginning of your video because at least that interested me.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
essay, I never knew the etymology of essay, and now I'm like,
Yeah, that
holy
and
crap,
that's
that just clicked.
uh-huh. Yeah, it comes from there was a French writer philosopher in like the 19th century who like actually coined the term essay, um, and it essentially it means an attempt or to try, and that's why all essays are titled on something. So it's an essay on biomechanics. You're making an attempt on biomechanics essentially, like So that's why that is the way that it is.
Huh, that's interesting because I have read like several studies and essays like that where they actually phrase it as an attempt to or
No,
whatever.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where it's like if you're smart enough, you know not to say the truth about X, Y, and Z. It's like, hey, bro, fucking sit down,
But that's your Instagram hook.
But sometimes, dude, 100%. I was just gonna say that when it comes to content creation, you got to be a little bit of a liar and just be like, you must be doing this. And I say that in my videos all the time. But it's like, what do I fucking know?
That's why I always open with the maxing. I'm like the jolly maxing, the whimsy maxing, because I know for yeah, it's the extreme and it's in the vernacular of the youth today, if you will. So it's like you have to play the game a little bit to get the fish to bite.
Nobody's gonna listen to you if you say, I think you already lost me. I don't give a fuck what you think. Tell me the truth.
The interesting thing about the maxing conversation is I'm not sure about how this derived, but it feels to me like it derived from like min maxing. You know what I mean? Minimizing losses and maximizing outcomes, which is inherently an optimization problem, which is really weird given the subtext that a lot of people are using it in now. It's like they're subverting the very lunar subtext of optimizing variables into doing something like jolly maxing or hero maxing or things of that nature. It's almost like backwards, and now we've reverted back to the country backwards speak.
It's very brutish, actually. It's like it sounds complicated to like old people, but it's almost like caveman speak. It's like
Yeah.
an intensifier you can just slap onto a word to you're doing.
Yeah, well, the first time that I ever heard it was in like 2020. I heard Soulbra say sun maxing, and I was like, sun maxing. What are you doing?
More sun.
Maxing. More sun. Sun max. Much
It's double
sun.
plus good, as George Orwell would say. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and like, you could just carry that into every aspect of your life. But yeah, it is those extremes that captivate people, and that's why, I make a video about reasons I dislike stoicism on Instagram and it gets 650,000 views and 4,000 comments. And then I'm like, there's so much discourse in the comments. I'm like, this would be a great YouTube video. Let me make that. And it gets less than 2,000 views. And nobody gives a shit because they don't want to hear my nuance. They want the argument and they want me to make a definitive stance and say stoicism is fucking stupid. And then they can argue with me. Then they can hate me or they can love me. And agree with me or disagree with me. But then if I give you the nuance, they're like, okay, yawn, bro. Who cares? So yeah.
Have you guys ever had like a dog or maybe a cat that needs to take medicine, but it doesn't like to take the medicine because it thinks it's gross? Yeah. And so you hide it in like a treat or some food.
It's literally what we're doing.
And it eats the pill, but it doesn't know it's eating the pill. I feel like that's kind of, if you're a content creator who has serious things to say and is not just purely farming engagement, which some people do, and you want to communicate something valuable, you do still have to play a little bit of the content game of wrapping the pill in a little bit of food, and the dog eats it and it doesn't know it's getting medicine, but
I'm literally going to say that from now on when people ask me what I do. Because that is exactly what it is.
I've had a sick little dog that you try to give it its frickin', it's like, this is helping you, and it's like,
you know what else that makes me think of is I saw a video one time where a guy was able to get his dog to take pills without having to hide it in anything by treating it like a treat. Where like he would drop it on the ground and be like, no, don't eat that. And then the dog would be like, what is it? And it would just
a little reverse psychology.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fucking hilarious.
So now that you've just said that, now I'm starting to think, I'm like, how can I reverse psychology, like drop the pill on the ground for my videos? It's kind of like when people are like, if you're not this person, keep scrolling. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
Well,
like that.
also a little bit of a tangent. Gray, when I first found your page, I think you'd commented or something. Then I saw that you were a bodybuilder,
Mm.
like a competitor, not just like a guy who goes to the gym twice a week and says, "I'm a bodybuilder." It's like, no, you actually are a legitimate
What the
bodybuilder. And
fuck?
I was
I am
like,
a bodybuilder, dude.
I was like, holy shit, this guy is freaking jacked and accomplished. That just added in subconsciously much more value to your words. So there's that whole element to it too, and that kind of goes back to the beginning where we're talking about physical pursuits grounding you, your appearance, and all that kind of thing. So I think that also helps with your videos. There's a video, you do some videos on the pull-up bar where
Yeah, I love
where
that.
you're doing some exercises and you're spitting really good knowledge, but you're also showing your awesome physique and doing cool workouts. And it's like,
I learned
that's
that
awesome.
yeah, it gives more engagement, and I think it's just, I mean, obviously it just communicates. Oh wait, if he says something about fitness, he knows what the hell he's talking about. It's also, I forget where I read this, but it's like there's inherently something attractive about whatever nature you have, subverting that in some sort of way. Like if you are a person who is let's say generally mean spirited, or like a very type A personality, a go getter. For instance, in a fashion sense, which I don't know anything about fashion, obviously, if you ever see me dress, you would intentionally dress in a way that is a bit more lightly colored, a bit more flowy. Whereas if you were a person who is a bit more sensitive, as a sensitive young man, you might dress a little bit more harshly. And I think that's why when you see me talk, bring up just literature, or I'm sitting there talking very philosophically about music and training and whatnot, and then you see that I'm have a decent physique. It's kind of like, oh wait a minute, hold up a
You're
second.
jacked.
It's like,
That's not under.
it's like, wait, this meathead has something interesting to say. What?
And
I
it's the
didn't
same thing with
expect
Mike
that.
Menser. That's Mike Menser's whole like aura. He's sitting there and there's something hypnotic about his speech that's just amazing.
Yeah.
I remember listening to all of his like audio recordings as a kid, and I was sitting there and taking notes over them after school. I think there's like 6 hours of audio recordings or something like that, where he goes through and he breaks down his entire thing. Like he was tapped
Yeah.
into the podcast grifter mindset. Anyone, yeah,
He
Well,
would have
I
thrived today.
yeah.
I think that the real, like, because there's so many things that you could say why it's inherently attractive, but I think that the real beauty of seeing a person who's in great shape and is also very intelligent is not just because of the meme of like the dumb jock and the scrawny nerd kind of thing, but like the true people understand that to get in really great shape, it takes a lot of time and attention. And to become truly intelligent and well spoken, well read, also takes a lot of time and attention. So being both of those things just immediately signals to people like, dang, this guy is on his shit. He has the time to be reading Evola and dissecting the texts and understanding the sort of like deeper intertwinings between this and culture. And he also goes to the gym and trains intensely 5 days a week. I know it's like a very just like base understanding of it, but that's genuinely appealing to people. And so when they see a jacked person who's talking about philosophy, they're like, this guy knows more than the guy who also knows just as much philosophy but is not jacked. Your information is inherently more valuable. And that's, people might not want to hear that.
Yeah,
People
people don't want to hear that. I got a lot of pushback on my second page on TikTok where I said that I disregard comments more that come from faceless accounts or accounts with
100%.
no followers, and people are like, well, just because they don't have that, just because they don't show their face, their idea could be true. And it's like, yeah, but it's a heuristic, right? I get a million comments, I look. If there's a faceless account, the odds are that it's a dumb comment. It's just much higher. They're not putting they're not attaching something to their identity, right?
Yeah.
There's a legitimate reason why, and of course, that doesn't mean all ideas from faceless accounts are useless. It's just when you get that much information, you have to make decisions on how do I spend my time interacting with my audience. I'm gonna disregard the person that doesn't attach
Yeah.
their image to their words. There's a degree of trust and ownership that is lost with that, and a lot of people got mad about that, but that's just how it is.
On a little bit of a deeper level too, I think that just on the level of having your face in your profile picture or a photo of yourself, or even all the way to the point where like you're very in shape and you take care of yourself and you groom and all these things. If you have an opinion on something, I already know inherently just by looking at you that you take yourself seriously. So if you take yourself seriously, I'm imagining you take your ideas and the things that you say seriously, because how many people do you know that they're just like disheveled and just like dysgenic and they have ideas and you're like, yeah, whatever. Like you're like, I don't know if you're fucking with me or not, basically is what I'm saying. But if you're a man who takes himself seriously and you wear it on yourself, then okay, I'm going to take what you say with a little bit more of a grain of salt because I know you mean it.
Yeah, if you're constantly playing devil's advocate, I mean, it's just Reddit moments. I kind of hate to phrase it in that sort of modern way, but it literally is, with the comments and whatnot. Like, I think about my HP Lovecraft video that I did semi recently, where there were so many comments that could not get past the fact. Like, I opened up, I knew what I was doing, but I said I have a love-hate relationship with HP Lovecraft, and no one could get past the fact that I didn't say, because he had good stories, but he was also racist. And it's like, it's like, we all know this, guys. We all know this.
Why do you need me to spell it out for you exactly?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, when you aren't giving them layups that they can, you're in this weird spot where it's like, if you give the audience a layup, they will not engage and they will not digest anything further. So you have to entice them with something that is gonna stir up an emotion just a little bit, which is part of just playing the jester,
Exactly, and you'll see it because people will hear your hook and then they comment your conclusion, and you're like, and they're like, I've even gotten the comments from people. They're like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were gonna say that." And it's like, how quickly did you fucking write your comment that you didn't even see the part?
I do wish there was like a feature where you could restrict comments without watching at least a portion of the video, where it's like it physically won't let you type until the clock ticks, because I'm just like. But I have to also understand, at the end of the day, it is engagement, and it technically benefits us. It's just annoying.
you just take psychic damage.
Yes, it is literally psychic damage. That's
so true.
My biggest pet peeve is being misunderstood. When I feel like I've articulated myself clearly and just getting misunderstood, and you explain yourself, and they're like, no.
You know what? I agree, and I felt that way when I first started making content. But Harry Miller is actually like, he made a really great point. I don't even think it was on our podcast. It was on maybe a different one that he was on. Where he's talking about how he actually like aims to be misunderstood, because if he has made him like not been understood properly, it's because his ideas are something like worth wrestling with, and like it's polarizing and it's deeper than just the immediate, oh, I see what I'm seeing and I hear what I'm hearing, and so I already just have like my opinion formulated off of that. If you're misunderstood, it's because the person... did we lose Gray for a sec? So we're back now. So yeah, so Harry made this video talking about how he wants to be misunderstood, yada yada. And I think that when you try to make yourself properly understood, you end up saying absolutely nothing, because there's no way that you could pander to every single person. And like, you can try it. When I first started making content on TikTok, I specifically did not want to be misunderstood because I didn't want to piss anybody off, because I was like afraid of the hate comments at first. And they really bothered me, because I'm like, guys, I'm telling the truth. Like, what I have to say, like, I'm not trying to mess with you guys. I'm not trying to lead you astray. Like, I'm telling you the truth. The fact that you're feeling so vitriolic and hateful about what I said is hurtful. and then you try and sharpen it and you try and soften it and then you try and say it a bunch of different ways and you realize, oh, you're just going to piss everybody off by doing that. And so then you do just have to speak your truth, be perfectly well understood by some, completely misunderstood by others, and just let the fruits speak for themselves, and let the people who are going to rock with you, and fuck whoever doesn't.
Yeah.
I think a lot of content creators start with that where you want to over explain yourself.
Yeah.
And it's easy to fall in that trap. But then yeah, you're casting pearls before swine because the person doesn't even want to understand you most of the time or isn't capable of understanding you. So you're wasting your time for one, and you're diluting your product, if you will. Recently I posted a video and someone commented, and I will give them credit. They said, I hope I'm misunderstanding you. And then they wrote a giant paragraph and they very grossly misunderstood me. And I said, yes, you did understand. I was respectful, but I basically said, yes, you misunderstood me. Think about what I actually said. And then I left it at that.
Not elaborate further. I'm not elaborating further.
I could go and try to explain it like a freaking kindergartner teacher and be like, this is what I meant by this is what I meant, but it's like that's why
you're the fool for doing that.
Yes,
and I already
exactly.
do that all day for a job, so I mean, I'm not
yeah, you are a teacher.
I'm trying to get out of that. No, but side note, next generation is screwed. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Bro, I wanted to actually ask you what that is like. Wait, what grade do you teach?
Like high school, mainly seniors, so like 12th graders, 11th graders. But I do also have some sophomores and whatnot. But yeah, no, like if you like, I don't know about you guys. I'm 22. When I went into school,
amazing. Teaching high schoolers when you're only fucking 5 years older than them, that's crazy.
Yeah. What is it? I got my bachelor's degree pretty early, and cool bug fact, if you go and you teach at a Title I school, you don't have to be certified as long as you have a 4-year degree, and they'll work with you in the process of certification. So hey, if you're ever down on your luck and you have a 4-year degree, go teach, and then you'll lose all your hair. But
I might do that. I've got a lot of hair.
You've still got your full head of hair.
Yeah. But so what it is like I'm going to class, write a 5-paragraph essay in a 50-minute class. 50 minutes. I teach like 95-minute blocks. So it's like 4 blocks in a day, and it's completely like you will not get a page of writing out of them. And part of this is that I know I'm not like I'm a perfect teacher, right? But at the same time, the learned helplessness epidemic is real, and it's a virus that is spreading fast in this modern age that we live in.
Yeah,
it's absolutely terrible. You can distill down everything to its most base components and hold their hand all the way through it. And unless you're actively holding their hand, they will not do work. Now, I'm being very black pill about this, but there are genuinely, you meet great students who, were raised right and whatnot, and can work hard and produce high quality work. But by and
take
large,
themselves seriously.
Yes, that's exactly it. Is nonchalant epidemic, learned helplessness epidemic are hand in hand. So and that's the one thing is like in my classroom, I was like, we are chalant in this classroom. There is no nonchalant. That's the
love
first
that.
speech.
You say that? I love that.
Yeah, because I could still, be brain rotted out my gourd with them because we're close enough in age. But yeah, that's the terrible thing. Is like nobody wants to try, which is the issue in school. But I think where it's different now is just that students, the veil has fallen. Like the way teaching works is that you have to believe that the teacher is an authority figure, because teaching as an institution does not give teachers any power whatsoever. In fact, anything bad happens, it's on the teacher, right?
Right. It's a lot of responsibility, no reward.
Yeah. Failing students is basically impossible. Even if you do fail them, they're going to move on to the next grade or class anyways, because admin will override it. And that if their
because
parent
they don't want
yells
to look bad, because if they're getting fails, then that looks bad on the school, looks bad on the district, and then they don't get the same funding and yada yada yada.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Which I mean, any teacher can tell you about night and day. It's just like, oh, we have a graduation rate in the high 90s, and then you have a 55% level of content mastery. It's like, how does that happen? You know?
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it goes into higher education too. Colleges,
mhm.
the family in high academia, and will tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
Degrees are printed out; they don't mean as much anymore. It's easier for
Yeah.
anyone to
They gave
kind
me
of
one
make
of those
it.
fucking things.
That's why I don't like.
That's how you know education's cooked if Jonas
That's
has
how
a
you
degree.
know, bro.
Yeah. It's
Crazy.
like it's not a marketing point to say, oh, I have a degree in exercise science, from a D2 university. It's like, who gives it to you?
Yeah, yeah.
For
Well, it's because at the end of the day, too, like all of the jobs are kind of being thrown into this pile of just like, look, like we just need a person who can get the work done. We don't actually care what your credentials and what your background is. Like, we're gonna have to teach you everything anyways. Um, and so like that was one of the main reasons I decided to go into philosophy was because I was like, I love philosophy and I know that I can stick it out for 4 years. I don't know if I can stick out mechanical engineering for 4 years. I don't even know if I need to, you know? Um, but also, I wonder how much of the learned helplessness also comes from the fact that, like, in the same way that I always thought that math was useless because I've got a calculator on my phone, now maybe kids think everything is useless because they've got ChatGPT on their phone. Do you think that that's like how obviously it's a plays a part, but how much of a part do you think it plays?
AI is like wild, in that the children think they can't even use AI intelligently. So like I can give them an assignment and I will say AI this. I will tell them it's like you can use your freaking Chromebooks and AI this. I don't care, just get the
Wow.
work done. Because I'm just trying to get something out of them. I'm saying, hey, get the work
Something
done.
useful. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I tell them it's like, there's gonna be those of you that come into this class who want to understand. And sidebar, I teach the way I teach my class is like a D&D campaign. So like they fight through dungeons and whatnot. But
That's awesome.
yeah, it's pretty fun for the students that enjoy it. But can you imagine going to a class like that? And I'm just like, okay, guys, we could play games the whole time. And you're like, I would rather do book work. That's what they tell me, and because they have to write, and you can't
Yeah.
chat GPT it because you have to reflect on your game experience. That's why they don't want to play the game.
Because it's real.
Because it's
Exactly.
real. I say you talk about the players in your game and the situations you encountered, or whatever. That's like your weekly reflection that you got to write, and they can't fake it, and they know that. But they can't even use it intelligently. Like if I handed them instructions, and they're saying, "Mr. Moon, where do I find this?" It's like, okay, well, can you AI it? Can you like plug the thing in there? And then they'll bring it up to me, and I'm like, okay, the AI didn't answer this question, this question, this question. So what do you want me to do? What do you think I want you to do? Answer the question, yeah. Like that interaction when I'm teaching happens 100 times a day. Uh,
That's unbelievable.
yeah. So AI has definitely made people poo brain. It's just lowered the what is it, bar, so to speak. I think
Yeah.
the real issue is just the fact that they can't be bored in a way that matters. The only reason I read a decent amount in high school and middle school, and especially in middle school, was just that it was okay to not have kids doing stuff all the time in the classroom. Um,
hmm
so now there's always this huge emphasis, teach bell to bell. And then, if a student gets done early, they can read quietly, they can work on stuff from another class, right? Which I think is
hmm
reasonable. But with the constant distraction of the phone, uh, there you can't. It's too
Yeah.
tempting. You're putting Twinkies in a fat guy's house. He's gonna eat them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. It's kind of one of those things where you don't really know. I mean, like how do you solve it? It's one of the like you said, you got to integrate it in a way where it's like AI is not going anywhere, so it's like maybe we try and integrate it in the classroom and just be like, all right, look, if you're gonna get smart, get really smart at using AI, I guess, you
Hmm.
know. But
Which
then
I
if you're
yeah.
struggling even with that, it's like, where do we go from here, and how could we possibly reverse out of it? It's like it's almost like we need an entirely new paradigm shift to a new like style of education, but I can't even begin to think what that looks like.
You got to dig it up. You got to dig the whole thing up and exhume it, man.
Yeah.
Because if the route they're trying to take is like, okay, ban phones coming into the school, bar nothing. Which I'm like, okay, that works as a band-aid
It might
solution.
do something. Yeah.
Yeah. But then it's gonna fall apart because one angry parent or whatever is really all it takes to get something like that thrown out. Um,
Yeah.
but you just have to accept at the end. You had to put power back in the teacher's hands, which of course I'm biased. But, if there's no reasonable means by which to hold a student accountable in any way that matters, being a teacher is actually a position of trust. Hey, I said this kid did not master this content. Okay, he fails this class. You have to let that happen, and you have to trust me as a professional. But the
I
thing
had to
is,
repeat algebra 1.
yeah, but there's the only reason. The only reason that would happen today is if they had good parents. You know what I mean? The parents are not as involved in their kids' lives as they need to be, and that's really where it starts. There's a thing I keep complaining about to my coworkers, which is why do I have to send out a thing informing parents that their child is failing my class? We send out report cards 4 times a semester. Okay.
Yeah.
There's also an app called Infinite Campus, which every time I put in a grade, it updates on their phone
Holy
and your phone.
PTSD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it updates on there. So you get that. Okay. Why do I have to send that out? And then
they're
then
not checking.
and I had to give you makeup work, so there's no point in due dates. I don't do due dates in my class anyways, but there's no point in having a due date if I'm gonna have to give them their makeup work anyways if they're failing my class. So it's really just like the veil between the teacher being an authority has dropped so far that as a teacher you're trying to manufacture. You have to become a really good psychological manipulator and almost like liar into making students scared of you, which is a bad situation. I feel like, But yeah,
Do you think that a lot of it? I feel like a lot of that might stem from the fact that we take education for granted. Like we take for granted the fact that you must go to elementary and then middle and then high school, get your diploma, and then you're gonna maybe go to college and then get a degree. Like we just take for granted that that is the thing that must be done. So we don't treat it as something that's like entirely necessary to master or be good at in any way. And I know for myself, like I didn't take school seriously at all until I had to have a 2.0 to be able to play soccer. It gave me something to kind of like aim towards. But then once I started taking it seriously, you start to find the things that matter to you. Like I realized I actually really liked English class. I liked reading books and then it being given a prompt for an essay and having to like think about it. Like I thought that was fun. And history was super interesting to me. So you find the things that like mean something to you, but I feel like it's tough because how do you instill that in every kid? Like it seems impossible.
you have to have a culling of the herd, in a sense, where it's just like you're gonna have to allow kids to fail and allow the parents to suffer as a consequence, which
And
sucks.
see where that goes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, historically, this idea of universal education is an anomaly, right? Most kids in history, they were born in their parents' little farmhouse or little urban house, and they helped their parents with their job, farming or whatever, and they never learned anything, and then they took it over, and then, maybe the city gets raided and they get killed or something, right? Most kids, education was a luxury for elite. Yeah. Well, I guess I owe you a soda. But this idea that everyone deserves caliber education and it's going to turn them all into geniuses is just not true. It's just not. Especially now with AI and all these technological factors we have to contend with. I think you're right. Some kids are going to have to just fucking fail out, and they're not cut out for it, and their families weren't cut out for it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But when you have to do this whole song and dance where you have to pretend, it's just like you're wasting so much time and resources.
Yeah. It's
on
a waste
bad
on my
product.
end, it's a waste on their end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, go work. You don't I tell some kids, it's like, do you want to be here right now? No. How old are you? 16. Drop out. Like I tell them that. It's like, drop out. Like, what do you want to go do?
I think that's legit, man.
Advice. That's not bad advice. No, because honestly, like if I mean, I'm not saying that I'm necessarily like, I'm not if that opportunity was given to me, I probably would have taken it sooner because it was probably around that time when I was like 16, 17. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do construction for the rest of my life. Like, there's no way I'm not going to be able to hack it in anything else. I'm not smart enough. If I was given that opportunity earlier, I probably would have taken it. I think I would have ultimately found my way towards where I am now and having gone to like school and UCLA and all these things later on down the line. But I had to work myself to get there. I had to go to community college for like 3.5 years to be able to get to that point because I realized that I wanted it by doing so poorly in high school that no college was ever going to read my resume in the first place. And that's a good thing. Because if I had just gotten in because everybody gets in, then like and it almost kind of makes me wonder if like the job crisis or the employment crisis where it's like people go get a 4-year degree and they're like, there's no jobs, I can't get a job. Maybe it's a skill issue, bro. Maybe you're not smart enough to get that job.
Dude, 100% skill issue. You know? My dad has a great saying, which is that there's always work. Like, there's always work. You know?
I promise. Yeah,
you're
like
just not hungry enough.
Yes. 100%. Yeah. I mean,
I think there is something to be said though for the overproduction and overqualification of people. That is partially because universities are incentivized to hand out diplomas and milk people for money, and then you get all these people with these fancy degrees, and there is work for them. There is work for them. It's just not work that is suited to what they thought they were going to be access to. It's like
100%.
You're not getting your 6-figure little special cushy job, but you can go work McDonald's with the rest of us. So like,
you can work McDonald's and now you have debt, and now that's a great motivator. So you're gonna work with an increased fire under your ass, you know.
Yeah, no, but it really does like we need to do away entirely with the entire paradigm of printing diplomas,
the system was bad before, and now AI and technology are just cracking it even further. And I don't know what's going to happen with academia and the workforce in the next 10 years with AI.
It's the great.
We're gonna have to see.
We see plenty of doctors and stuff on like TikTok and Instagram that are very obviously using like ChatGPT to like type content, and that just like it might not even be like that they're like complete hacks, but they just like not be good at speaking. But I'm kind of like, if you're a doctor and you can't articulate these points that you're trying to make, I kind of don't want to hear them, and I also kind of don't care, and it makes me distrust you.
I know. I have a friend who is like a financial advisor, insurance, something. But he said the first thing he does, and it's not that he can't do the work, he doesn't. But it's like, if ChatGPT does it good enough for his clients, why would he put in the effort? He could type it in ChatGPT 5 minutes, get the same amount of pay, and then go fuck off and play video games. It's like, why wouldn't he do that? So you're not incentivized to work. You're just not. If it's You're gonna press the easiest button.
And that's the same thing with teaching. Like, what I will outsource it for is like anytime I'm being made to do hamster wheel type activities, which there's a million of in teaching. Mm-hmm. Like, go do this useless thing because we said it was important, and if you don't do it, then we're gonna talk to you very sternly about it and then do nothing. Yeah. So like, make sure your lesson plans are in your door, and they can't be the same lesson plans as last time. Like last semester or whatever. They need to be different somehow. Make this different. You know what I mean? Because there's no soul behind the work that you're doing anyways. Like, this does not in any way change the way I'm going to teach. So in that sort of sense, I can see where the easy button becomes a lot easier to press, because it's like, well, then I might as well use that for everything.
Well, back to Jonas's point about having to learn to care. Back to working out, there was a period in between wrestling and when I left for college where my dad basically made me work out, but I'd go into the gym and I'd put it on the lowest weight because I didn't care. I didn't care about my physique. I was done with physical discipline. I never wanted to do it again. I'd put in 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so I was, obviously not making gains on 5 fucking pounds. Mm-hmm. But then I eventually got to the point where I had to learn oh yeah, I actually want this and I want to challenge myself and I want rediscovered that whatever. But I had to kind of go through that phase. And if I never wanted it and I was fine doing the low weight for the rest of my life, then so be it. I'll be a scrawny, skinny, fat guy forever. And that's just how it's going to have to be, right?
But you would deserve it if that was the case.
Yeah,
If that was
I
actually
would
gonna.
deserve my fate. And that's, you
Yeah,
have to let people get what they deserve in some
I agree.
sense, or to give them the
Arthur Fleck.
opportunity to, yeah. Yeah, he's on the talk show. You get what you fucking deserve.
Well, guys, we're at about 2 hours here, and I know that it's getting pretty late for you over there on the east. So, you guys want to jump into some questions really quick, and then we'll wrap this up?
Yeah, sure thing.
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. First question that we got here, um, from Andrew can tell me. He asks, "How do you balance social functions with diet?" Pretty broad, but what would your general
Okay.
pieces of advice be?
So first off, be antisocial. Don't go to social functions. That's my main. But I try and
Helps.
combat that. I really try and combat that. But I don't drink because I have an addictive personality. I know it will destroy me. I look at it and I'm like, I'm gonna like this way too much. I see some stuff and I'm like, yeah, no. Um, but with social functions and whatnot, like this right here to me is a social function. And you know, my relationship with my fiance is a social function. Sometimes training gets put on the back burner, or you make suboptimal decisions. But I think ultimately, as long as your compass is pointed in the right direction, it really doesn't matter. Um, there is safety in obsession, and that's where
Mm.
people get screwed up. And it's where I was screwed up for a long time because it's actually very easy for men to be obsessed about something and plug away at it and devote their entire essence into something, and that's a very safe place to stay. It's harder to be an alcoholic and walk into a liquor store and not buy anything. It's harder for me to, let's say I was out of shape and me go to a social function and make bad eating decisions and then fall off my weightlifting program. So if you get to a point where you're comfortable enough getting back up on the horse every time that you fall off, like that's the skill you're really building at the end of the day. So it's really not so much as a balance as I am very comfortable riding the vibe I'm on, and my compass is already always pointed back to that discipline aspect, and I can make good decisions while I'm off the horse.
Yeah, I this is something that I've kind of like spoken to people about because like the whole avoiding processed foods and seed oils are in everything, I've got to eat perfectly because I got to avoid this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, it's like if you're going to allow having some French fries with your steak at dinner be the thing that like fucks you up psychologically and physically, it's like being the kind of person who is on the horse 99% of the time, that falling off 1% of the time, that's not going to do any damage to you. The
Mm-hmm.
person who's doing it 99% of the time and they do it another time, it's like, oh yeah, that person's fucked. They're not going to be able to recover from it. But if you're the type of person who's so obsessive about being good most of the time, you have a little bit of leeway to be bad. And I
Yeah.
think that that's the thing to understand is not that you need to be perfect because you're not going to be perfect, but just like kind of like build up the armor, I suppose. And then when the social functions come, like you can just take them as they are. You don't have to be perfect at the social functions as well.
Absolutely, and I think this is going to sound strange, but I think I'm almost spiritually protected from that sort of thing when I fall off the horse.
Exactly.
Like, like,
Exactly.
like when I go out and I eat a meal with my fiance, I'm still maybe making conscious good decisions here, but like at this point in time, it would have aggravated me a lot when I was like in a high school or like closer to early college. But like now it's just like because this is a good thing. Like I'm almost sacrificing something to my fiance, and she has told me specifically that she appreciates when she knows I'm going off program for her. You know what
Right.
I mean? I can maintain a decent level of control over that, but I feel like where my heart's at, it keeps me spiritually protected from any deleterious effects thereof.
I love that.
That's great mindset. The only thing I'll add, and definitely someone who, when I first got into fitness, I was also drinking a lot partying a lot, and I still made progress just because you're young, you. And part of it was the mindset. I didn't have the idea that alcohol was bad for my gains, so I didn't let it affect me. But now I'm at the point where, yes, I know it does, and I don't have an addictive personality, but I will say I have an indulgent personality, which means if I have one of something, I'm going to have more of something. So for me, a good strategy is I like to pick and choose. And if I'm going to go to a social function and have drinks or have food, I'm going to go all out. I'm going to have, 10 drinks. I'm going to have the whole pizza. But I don't do it very often. I abstain most of the time, and it's kind of almost like a purge day, if you will. And I'm not saying that's the right strategy for everyone, and I'm not even saying it's a healthy strategy, but it's just that's my personality, and that's what works best for me and my goals.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes trying to mitigate stuff too much in the short term just creates a higher longing for it long term. This is kind of what we see with like fasting and whatnot. For some people, fasting can be a much more effective weight loss tool because they simply don't have to think about food instead of like trying to limit their calories, which is something I've implemented in the past, something I steer away from now, just because for personal reasons. But like like if you get that sort of purge, it's like the opposite. Is the opposite. Like, hey, I have a dedicated time of indulgence here, and I'm going to maximize the effects associated with it so that I get maximum enjoyment from it, and that will sustain me across the aesthetic times to come.
No, I guess so, like some people it might be easier to have a cookie every day and work it into their diet. For me, it's better to have no cookies and then on the fifth day have four cookies. It's just
Yeah.
it's just easier for my psychology, and but some people are not that way, and that's something you have to know yourself and know what you want and how you react to things. There's no perfect method, or else we would all be perfect, right?
Absolutely.
This next question is a little bit of speculative, I guess you could say, because we don't really know for sure. But the question comes from Christiana Vibes, and he asked, "Is physical excellence declining? What are the anatomy and muscle differences between ancient and modern?"
I think a lot of times people will. There's the idea. Okay, so there's the idea of myth, and there's the idea of what we consider history, right? I think mythologically is what we're trying to channel in bodybuilding in general. We're trying to channel something
The
mythological.
ideal.
Historically, it probably honestly wasn't all that amazing. You definitely had some outliers like Gruta Pierre or whatever, who's just absolutely
Yes, we
insanely
talked about
ginormous.
him on some
did.
episode.
Or Milo of Croton.
Yes, where you I love that. But yeah, where you just have these outliers. Generally speaking, though, if you're looking at warriors, they probably weren't extremely lean. They probably had a slight layer of body fat on them that was good for cushioning and taking blows and whatnot. But then you also had to balance that with the fact that hey, they're oftentimes marching. They're very physically active. So do we approach that sort of what is it 300-esque physique? I mean, maybe in some individuals, but by
Yeah,
and
the elite.
large, the absolute genetic elite, right? So I think it's not as far as the decline goes. I think en masse, yes, physiques have declined in the modern age. I mean, that's really no debate. But I don't think it's as cut and dry as physiques were better all the way through history. It's like you did have because you're just thinking about the elite noble class. Your average peasant is going to be a fit individual, but it's not going to be this picturesque type person, generally
Yeah.
speaking.
I would almost go as far as to say, like, I think the general picture of physiques or of like health was probably a bit more like on par all the way through. Like, there were probably less genetic outliers of like the massively obese versus the like, roided out, like stepping on stage classic Olympia physiques.
Yeah.
Whereas like now we have the extremes, right?
Hmm.
Because modern life allows for those extremes. You can indulge in everything that you want and sit on the couch for your entire life. Or you also have the privilege of being able to go to an air conditioned gym with all of the perfect equipment that can just you can cultivate your body into the perfect specimen, and we also have all of the diet tools and the research and the science and yada yada. So it's like you have both extremes. I think as far as like ancient man goes, it was probably just a bit like more moderated throughout.
Yeah.
I will say, I think as we were kind of talking about a little bit ago, their mindsets, what were really made them maybe a cut above the modern man. You read war accounts of guys who are like in their freaking 60s riding into battle still. And it's like I don't think it was that their bodies were that superhuman where they were just had the body of a younger man. I think their minds were just so immune to being pussies
Yeah.
that they didn't even think about the fact that they were more fragile and that they had all these arthritises and all these little ailments. They just fucking did what they did. You even you read, like I was reading Storm of Steel, and Younger's talking about how he sleeps for like 1 hour and he's drinking liquor all the time and the food sucks and he's hungry all the time. And it's like, if I did that, I would be a fucking mess.
Yeah.
Like I would not be able to function. And that he's charging trenches with grenades and pistols and doing all that crazy shit. I think there is a big mindset difference between us and maybe historical figures, especially if we're going to talk about warriors. But that was something of necessity, and they didn't have the comfort and knowledge to know how much their sucked.
Yeah,
Yes.
and your perception is your reality, isn't it? So,
Yep, exactly.
awesome. All right, last question we got from Birdman Hitchcock. He asks, "What do you think is more important in working out, motivation or discipline, and why?"
The classic example here, and I'm gonna give a weird answer to this, but discipline is it's said that discipline's what's keep you going when motivation runs out, right? But I think generally speaking, if you're not motivated to do something on a consistent basis, you don't like doing it, and if you don't like doing it, why are you doing it?
You're not going to, yeah.
Yeah. So that discipline can help you. People always say, motivation is the thing that helps you short term. I think discipline is really, it does also have a short term effect where until you learn to love something, you
Yeah.
have to be disciplined with it. You see this a lot in like romantic relationships. Early on, the guy, I'm very disciplined. Oh, she texts back. I'm texting back as soon as I can. Or I'm going to make sure that she feels special. I'm going to make sure I do this. Let me plan out, let me have a routine as much as I can around this so that I cultivate something here. It's just like gardening in a sense as well. But
Yeah.
so that's where discipline comes in short term. And you're motivated to do it because rewards early on are bigger. It's an infinite increase. 0 to 1 is an infinite increase. So the motivation and discipline kind of work in tandem. What happens over time is that things become droll and you don't know like what your purpose is in this activity, and that's why a relationship might fall apart. But that's also the same reason that a gym routine might fall apart. And it's not the discipline that keeps you there. The discipline is the thing that keeps motivation coming. It allows you to meditate on the activity. And so what keeps you in the fight in the sense is if you are just training and you are going through the motions in a sense, you're like, I'm doing this, I'm taking my medicine. If every time you're having to take your medicine, there's something fundamentally wrong with your approach, and that means that you actually haven't made the change that needs to happen. People, it's not just getting a more muscular body. It's you have to become a person that performs certain activities with fervor and enthusiasm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that discipline is overrated. I think that people think that, especially with like, maybe not so much anymore, but like for a while there, like the Jocko Willink, David Goggins kind of types were really, really like on the forefront of what fitness is supposed to be, and it's like it's supposed to suck and you're supposed to hate it, and like but you just do it anyways because you're a fucking man. It's like I never disliked going to the gym but did it anyways because I was always actually motivated by the desire to become better. Even on the days where I didn't feel like going to the gym, it didn't feel like it was discipline that was keeping me going because I'm like, oh, I'm in a routine, I got to do it. I was motivated by just feeling better that day. I knew that going to the gym was going to make me feel better. Maybe I'm tired, maybe I don't want to go, or something like the same reason that I don't eat like crap. It's not because I am so disciplined that I'm this like, I'm going to not do it anyways even though I want the cake. It's like I am motivated by the thing that it's going to bring me. So I really do think that people I think they look at motivation the wrong way. They think that it has to be this grand thing when at the end of the day, it's just like, what do you want? Well, I want this. Do you want it more than this other thing? Yeah. All right, there you go. There's your motivation. That's all it takes.
And then if not, why?
Ask yourself those questions. Yes, exactly.
I think people confuse discipline and structure a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think structure can definitely help you best channel your motivation. Same with the gym routine or even content creation, where there's like, when there's days I'm like, well, I'd rather film a short little hoo-ha video than write a real script. The structure of, well, you set this time to write your script, you're going to sit down and write and not film a hoo-ha video. But it's like the motivation for content creation didn't go anywhere. It's not like I don't care about that goal anymore. The motivation's always there. Sometimes the structure you have to work with, but I think people confuse discipline and structure a little bit. And it kind of all gets messy. But yeah, I don't think motivation is this thing where you just lose it and then all of a sudden you're coasting on fumes for what? And then it's like, why? If you don't love something and you're not getting something tangible out of it, why are you doing it? There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't like this anymore, I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
That's fair. That is fair. And I don't think you need to make everything that you want suffering. It's always been a weird approach to me, as you kind of said. Like,
if I could make one more kind of caveat on that, I think that there's also a disconnect between the idea of motivation and inspiration, because inspiration is the thing that's going to like kick off, like when I got cheated on and I wanted to build the revenge body, I was inspired by that event, but I wasn't motivated by it. And I think that was the thing that I had to, you know what I mean? I had to recognize, because obviously at some point I stopped caring about that girl entirely. And then it's like, that's not the thing that's what inspired me. But the thing that motivates me is I realize how much more confident I feel, and I realize how much better I feel and how much more athletic I am and these sorts of things. And it's those little things that are, like you said, a part of your why. Why are you doing this? That's what the motivation is. And if you lose the inspiration, but you never had anything that was ultimately motivating you, that's when people are like, oh, I lost my motivation. You never had it to begin with.
Yeah.
If it doesn't matter to you now, it never mattered to you. You were simply inspired. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you can deconstruct that whole thing with the discipline and motivation dichotomy and just being like, well, what is your motive for training? If you frame it like that, then it becomes very clear. It's like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. I don't actually care about training. Shit. You have to build from scratch. Exactly. Yeah. Well, beautiful. Dude, absolutely incredible conversation. I appreciate you sticking out with us for 2 hours and 20 minutes. This has been
likewise. It flew by, honestly.
It always does. It always does. And we'll definitely have to have you back on, because there's just so much that we didn't even get to jump into. But for the time being, this was an incredible conversation. We're going to have all of your stuff linked below, your Instagram, where people can find you. But do you want to just give a quick shout to your socials and what you're working on, where people could reach you?
Yeah, sure. So at Greyrilla on Instagram, and I think also YouTube and TikTok and whatnot. And hey, we're just working on, building the coach and building the brand, and really at the end of the day, seeing how many people I can help that are like me at the end of the day, and get rid of your neurosis as it pertains to training and whatnot. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to y'all.
Well, it's likewise. It's you've been recommended many times, and you make great content that we love. So it's awesome to have you on, and I think we had a very valuable conversation. So thank you for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, awesome. All right, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.